Chapter 676. Although Yu Luan was a little unhappy about continuing the competition, he still had the motivation to take action. In just one morning he said he would continue the competition, and it really started on time. Lone Moon and the others, on the other hand, because of lunch, they went later. When they arrived on the stage of the competition, all the elders were already there. Tianji was also sitting at the highest position, but Tianyi's technical geek fanboy was not here. Thinking that he had just bought a batch of spirit herbs from Nameless Mountain, he was probably refining pills again. I Ching flew directly to the stage, looked at the two empty seats in the middle. He habitually turned his body to let Shining sit down, then turned back to look at Father Nyo behind him. He seemed to hesitate for a moment. After a while, he sat down on the only empty seat with no qualms. Lone Moon, son of AB***. Although with his current status he really should not sit down, but what the hell was chef's? Anyway, this month's food allowance has already been collected. Look. He was inexplicably unhappy. Tianji turned to look at them as if recalling something. His expression twisted for a moment, then immediately recovered. He turned his head away as if nothing had happened. But I Ching looked at him, his expression darkening. He subconsciously sent a voice transmission. His body, the demonic chi is gone. Lone Moon directly said, I discovered it in the main hall this morning. The demonic chi on his body is gone. I Ching's expression darkened even more. Could they have guessed wrong? Previously, when the protective mountain array was suddenly activated, they had guessed that the person who was hiding in the sect and could not be found, and the person who killed Elderine, could be Tianji. He had imprisoned Zhong Yi for so many years. He had been in contact with that earth demon for too long. Even if he was a soul formation cultivator, it was impossible for him to not be affected at all. And when they first met him, there were already signs of him turning into a demon, but Shu Yi used the system to suppress it. So, the first person they suspected was him. But that day, Chef specially used his divine perception to search, but did not find demonic chi on his body. Until later, when they saw the system's method of sealing demonic chi, they thought that he was the same, long turned into a demon, only his demonic chi was sealed by the system. But now, looking at him, his body was clean, there was no trace of demonic chi, nor did it look like it was concealed by the system. He looked like an ordinary soul formation cultivator, which was strange. If he did not turn into a demon, then where did the demonic chi that Shu Yi sealed in Zhuosheng's body come from? Before they had time to think about it, the competition below had already begun. One side of the arena was filled with pill furnaces. More than 10 disciples were already hugging spirit herbs and refining pills. For a moment, the entire arena was filled with the fragrance of pills, and the smoke became hazy. Compared to this side, the other side of the arena was much simpler and calmer. Originally, only Zhuosheng and Shu Yi's battle for the title of Chief Charm was left in the spell competition. Now that the competition continued, it naturally only required the two of them to fight. Shu Yi was already waiting outside the arena. She glanced sharply at Zhuosheng, who was walking over, and did not look like she wanted to acknowledge him. Tu Buxua, on the other hand, was as naive and sweet as ever. He greeted the other party with a warm smile. Uncle Master Shu. Martial Nephew Zhua. Perhaps because he felt that victory was in his grasp, Shu Yi had a rare good expression on his face. It seems that we have to fight today to determine the winner. Uncle Master Shu, what are you saying? I've always admired your cultivation, Zhuosheng replied seriously. To be honest, he might not be able to defeat her. After all, there was a huge gap between them. But Shu Yi's expression darkened. Thinking of the past, the hatred in her eyes deepened. Are you mocking me? No. Zhuosheng was stunned. He hurriedly explained, I'm being sincere. Don't think that you're invincible just because you're a sword cultivator. Shu Yi snorted. She took a deep breath and suppressed the anger in her heart. In a low voice she said, From today onwards, I want everyone to know that you've lost to me. He didn't think that way. Uncle Master Shu, do you have some misunderstanding about me? He looked like he wanted to explain to her clearly. Misunderstanding? Shu Yi laughed coldly and glared at him. The disdain on her face was overflowing. She said meaningfully, There's no misunderstanding. After today, everything will be clear. But if I've done anything wrong, I hope. He still wanted to say something. Say no more. But Shu Yi completely lost interest in talking. She glanced at him and said, If there's any problem, we'll fight. Uncle Master Shu, you don't believe me? He faltered. We cultivators have always judged right and wrong based on our cultivation. She turned her hand and directly summoned a spirit sword. Her gaze was cold. She said threateningly, You don't have to say any more. If you're capable, win against the sword in my hand. Why do you have to pretend to be a gorilla and talk so much nonsense? Cultivation is something that goes against the heavens. No matter how beautiful your words are, it can't compare to the fact that your cultivation is half a level higher. I only believe in the sword in my hand. No matter what kind of demons and monsters you are, I'll kill them all. Wherever the sword goes, the Tao will appear. Come and fight. With that said, she glared at him coldly and directly flew up to the stage. Xuesheng's eyes widened. He stood rooted to the ground in shock. As if he had been shocked, he did not move for a long time. Until a junior brother beside him could not help but remind him that it was time for him to go up. Xuesheng then turned and slowly walked up to the stage. He looked like he had been frightened. He was still in a daze. He frowned and muttered something softly. The stage had already announced the start of the competition. Please enlighten me. Shu Yi bowed according to the procedure. She gripped the sword in her hand tightly and pointed to the opposite side. Xuesheng did not move. He looked up at Shu Yi in a daze. He did not even summon his spirit sword. It was as if he was really frightened by the words the other party said before going up to the stage. Shu Yi also did not care about his abnormal behavior. She directly activated her spirit chi and flew towards the other party with her sword. Xuesheng remained rooted to the ground. He stared at the other party's sword coming towards him. It was getting closer and closer. It looked like it was about to pierce his body. It was as if he had just woken up from a dream. His eyes widened and he shouted, "I understand now." Suddenly, a huge wave of spirit chi exploded from his body. The surrounding spirit chi instantly became chaotic. The surging spirit pressure directly caused the sword in Shu Yi's hand to fly out of his hand. All the spectating disciples were stunned. Yet Xuesheng, who was in the middle, was still excitedly muttering, "Where the sword goes, the Tao will appear." Well said. He had thought wrongly. In the past he had been beaten too badly by Brother Lone Moon. The moment he held his sword, he had the thought of retreating. But a sword cultivator was a sword. There were no regrets when the sword was used. He did not have time to think too much. If he had been thinking about losing from the beginning and was afraid of the slightest thing, how could he still be considered a sword cultivator? With a sword in hand he could just cut it. Why think so much? Xuesheng felt his heart relax. It was as if the things that had been troubling him all this while had disappeared. He had finally found the opportunity that he had been looking for. In an instant, large amounts of spirit chi suddenly began to gather in Xuesheng's direction. More and more spirit chi gathered. A strong wind blew and the sky darkened. This is... Yulwan stood up abruptly. He blurted, "He's going to form his core." Lone Moon, I Ching, Shining, Winky Face a natural nemesis. He lived up to his name. She felt like she could hear someone vomiting blood. Chapter 677. Yulwan had already flown down and stopped the competition, pulling Xuesheng. "Quick. Focus and focus on forming your core." "Core formation?" Xuesheng faltered, looking completely clueless about what was going on. "That's right." Yulwan nodded excitedly. He didn't expect that there would be such a surprise in this competition. "Hurry and sit down." Lone Moon also flew down and looked up at the darkening sky, reminding loudly, "Your lightning tribulation is coming." Oh. Xuesheng finally reacted. Just as he was about to sit down, he seemed to recall something and turned to look at Shu Yi, who was already in a daze, stepping forward agitatedly to hold her hand, revealing an extremely excited smile. Thank you, Senior Sister Shu, for enlightening me." Swoosh, the sound of a knife stabbing could be heard. But the more he spoke, the more agitated he became, his eyes filled with gratitude. "Where the sword goes, the Tao will appear. Senior Sister is indeed a genius. I will always remember Senior Sister's guidance." Swoosh swoosh, another knife. "Right?" He suddenly turned to look at the disciple who was hosting the competition below the stage and said, "I am willing to admit defeat in this competition. Senior Sister Shu's comprehension is indeed above mine." Swoosh swoosh swoosh, 3 knives in a row. Xuesheng then seemed to have settled something on his mind. Turning to sit in the center of the arena and meditating to form his core, he closed his eyes, not daring to add another sentence. "Senior Sister Shu, you're really a good person." Shu Yi, the 3 spectators. Why did he suddenly feel a little sympathy for Shu Yi? Indeed, her originally dark expression instantly turned as black as the bottom of a pot. Her eyes seemed to have thousands of knives stabbing outwards at the same time. She was like a balloon that was being blown up, looking like it was about to explode. As the sect master, Yulwan had already started to clear the arena. Zhusheng's lightning tribulation came too quickly, he could only form his core on the spot. Fortunately, this was the martial arts arena, it was just right. Hence he hurriedly got all the spectating disciples to retreat 100 meters away. Even the disciples who were already in the midst of pill refinement next door stopped, in case they were accidentally injured by the lightning tribulation. He cleared the area as fast as he could. Tianji flew down from above as well. He pulled Shu Yi, who had been standing there in a daze. He even comforted her out of goodwill. Although this battle was an accident, little Yi, don't worry. You are the undisputed champion. Shu Yi's face contorted in an instant. The string in his mind snapped. F***ck off the head of the pack. She didn't do it for the championship, she did it for... That's right. She wanted to ruin his reputation and turn him into a stray dog that everyone wanted to beat. Her gaze sharpened, and only then did she remember her goal. She began to frantically urge the system, quick. System, let his demonic energy explode. Now. But host, there are still 20 minutes before the lockdown expires. Who cares about the lockdown time now? Shu Yi felt a lump in her throat, stifling her heart. If we wait any longer, he's going to form his gold core. Hurry, remove the seal and release the devil aura. Alright, host. Before 001 could finish his words, the first lightning tribulation had already smashed down. Then there were a few rumbling sounds, one after another, illuminating the night sky that was already completely dark. But Zhusheng's expression did not change. Apart from the fact that his dermic robes were a little yellow from the lightning strikes, there were no serious injuries on his body. Compared to the last time Shu Yi went through the tribulation, he was many times better. He was a sword cultivator in the first place. The sword chi on his body could automatically resist the lightning tribulation. In addition, he was used to being beaten up by Lone Moon for so many years. Naturally, his body's quality had improved. The golden core lightning tribulation was indeed nothing to him. Even the sect master Yulwan and the elders who were watching could not help but look gratified. They looked at Zhusheng with even more satisfaction. Shu Yi's expression darkened. What's going on? Why isn't the demonic chi on his body exploding? She asked loudly in her mind. I don't know either. The lockdown has indeed been lifted. Where's the demonic chi? Where did it go? The lightning was too powerful. It cleared away all the other energies. Perhaps even the demonic chi. What? Shu Yi's expression was one of disbelief. She felt like she was about to go crazy. You're saying that the demonic chi was dispersed by his lightning? That should be the case. Damn it. She had clearly planned everything. Why was it that every time, everything was different from what she had imagined? Could it be that Zhusheng was really the son of the heavenly Tao? Was it useless no matter what she did? Ding. Original owner's resentment points plus 10. Current total value 75. Shu Yi only felt a ball of boundless anger surging up from the bottom of her heart. A never-before-felt hostility exploding from the bottom of her heart. Her hatred towards Zhusheng instantly rose to a height that she had never felt before. She was filled with murderous intent, and the spirit chi on her body also faintly changed, as if it was beginning to fluctuate. Little E. Tianji, who was beside her, was the first to notice her abnormality. His expression changed instantly. He immediately conjured a seal to seal the spirit chi on her body. The spirit chi on Shu Yi's body dissipated and she fainted. Tianji's expression darkened. He turned to instruct Yulwan. She was affected by the spiritual pressure. Her meridians were injured. I'll bring her back first. With that said, he carried her and flew back to Danxia Mountain. Yulwan did not care much. He bowed and sent them off. Then he continued to look excitedly at Zhusheng, who was going through the tribulation. The more he looked, the more satisfied he was. He was right. This child was a good seedling. Father Nyo. I Ching looked at the two of them and sent a voice transmission to Lone Moon, who was beside him. I saw it. Lone Moon nodded. She almost turned into a demon just now. It seems that this invader's willpower is not much different from the original owner's. She had to say that Zhusheng was her natural nemesis. In her previous life, she angered someone into becoming a fiendish cultivator. In this life, it would be the same for the invader. She angered one to death. Naturally, she angered the second to death. Indeed, they were superfluous. Oh no, I sensed pure demonic chi from her body just now. I Ching suddenly said in a low voice. What? Lone Moon was shocked. She just turned into a demon. Why would there be pure demonic chi? Logically speaking, given her cultivation, even if she completely turned into a demon, she would only be a fiendish cultivator. What she emitted would only be evil qi. It's indeed demonic qi. I'm not sure where it came from. I Ching frowned. Because of the demonic seed in her body. Shining suddenly interrupted. What? The two of them were shocked. They turned to look at her. Didn't I tell you? Shining took a bite of her fruit and said slowly, the demonic seed in her master's body was transferred to the invader. I Ching, Lone Moon, for all. Flip's table. You didn't even mention about the demonic seed, alright. Chapter 678. Lone Moon contacted Yu Hong again and brought the Earth Demon back for questioning. He did not know if it was an illusion, but this little Earth Demon that did not even have a physical body seemed to be weaker than before after returning to the demon world. Lone Moon asked him to explain in detail what happened when he possessed a fiendish cultivator. Then he asked about the demonic seed. It turned out that when Tianji captured the fiendish cultivator Zhong Yi back then, his motive was to obtain the hellfire in Zhong Yi's body. Yet he could not control it. Thus he had no choice but to keep him locked up. Zhong Yi had to endure the backlash of the dark fire while being tortured by Tianji. Naturally he was filled with hatred and fear. In the end he was still immortal, so he couldn't hold on any longer. But old demon was a demon, this little torture was nothing in his eyes, not to mention the other side did not know of his existence. Zhong Yi was, after all, the host that he was living in. He was a demon with a temper, and if he didn't do something about it, he would be letting down the characteristics of his race. Hence, in these 500 years he hid in Zhong Yi's body. While enticing Zhong Yi to give him his life, he also secretly created a demonic seed and planted it in Tianji's body. When they first saw Tianji, they saw the demonic qi around him because of the demonic seed. However, after Shu Yi became his disciple, he couldn't just watch his backer disappear just like that, so he used the system to remove the demonic seed from Tianji's body and isolated it in his own body. Since it's already isolated, why is Shu Yi still affected? Lone Moon could not understand this point. If not for Tianji's timely interruption, Shu Yi would have become a demon. Could the system be so useless? That's because the system has lifted the lock. Shining answered casually as she tapped on the light screen in her hand. What blockade? Lone Moon paused and recalled the system's small broadcast just now. Didn't the system remove the seal on 2 bucks swa? Shining did not turn back. She continued to stare at the screen in front of her. She even picked up the parenting system and placed it in the middle of the screen. Then she said casually, oh, I linked the 001 system's program to seal demonic seeds with the program to seal demonic qi. Lone Moon, I Ching, what? Last time? Could it be that time when the parenting system crashed into the firewall? Therefore, as long as he removed it, he would be able to remove both of them. Could it be that her actions back then had stealthily tricked everyone on the opposite side? Speaking of which, what did Boss Jing teach her back then? How did you find out that the demonic seed had been transferred to Shu Yi? Lone Moon pursed his lips and asked, unwilling to give up. Neither he nor Chef had noticed. I saw it. Shining replied. A moment later she added, that time on the boat. On a ship? On the spirit boat? They suddenly remembered that when they had returned from Yuanyang City, she had inexplicably appeared in front of Shu Yi and even scared him. At first he thought that she had just taken a wrong turn. After all, she had no sense of direction at all. He didn't expect that she had purposely followed him. He even found out about the demonic seed. Lone Moon couldn't help but glare at her. Would it kill you to tell us? And then? What are you doing now? He pointed at the screen around them. Ever since they returned, she had not stopped working on the screen. She did not even turn to look at them when she spoke. Updating. Shining pointed at the parenting system and replied. Updating? Lone Moon hesitated. He looked at the little square floating on the screen. Updating the parenting system? He took a closer look. Indeed, the little cartoon eye on the square had disappeared. In its place was a charging icon. It really was updating. Could it be? Master still wants the parenting system to force 001 out of the host's body? I Ching's eyes lit up. He couldn't help but ask. No. Shining finally stopped. She picked up a fruit and took a bite. The system said that it might be discovered by intruders if it goes out. It's too boring to stay in the house. So, I played some games for it. I Ching, Lone Moon, there's also Fight the Landlord. Xinying's eyes lit up. There are 3 of us. Want a round? Get lost. F** King retard. You would have to be blind to believe that this foodie would become so diligent. #convex, is Brother Lone Moon in? Suddenly a familiar male voice sounded from outside. It sounded a little anxious. Tianyi, what is he doing here? Lone Moon recognized the voice immediately. He turned and walked out. Brother Tianyi, today was not the day they agreed to gather spirit herbs. It's good that Brother Lone Moon is here. Tianyi's expression brightened and he immediately took a few quick steps forward to welcome him. His gaze swept across the room behind him and he pulled Lone Moon 2 steps away. Then, with some guilt, he said, "To tell you the truth, I'm here for an urgent matter and would like to trouble you, brother." Lone Moon glanced at him. He could tell that he was hesitant. Coincidentally, he didn't want him to enter the house in case he saw the system playing games. He said, "Let's go to the pavilion in front to talk." Tianyi's expression relaxed. He turned and walked to the pavilion in front. "Brother Tianyi, feel free to speak your mind." Lone Moon immediately switched to business mode. He smiled and said, "I'll help as much as I can." Tianyi glanced at him. The guilt in his eyes deepened. He sighed and said, "Sigh. I have no choice. That's why I'm here to trouble you. Brother Lone Moon, you have a lot of friends. You're also very knowledgeable about spirit herbs. That's why I wanted to ask, do you know anyone who has 1,000-leaf spirit flower?" "Radish flower?" Lone Moon blurted out in shock. 1,000-leaf spirit flower. Wasn't it the flower of the 1,000 leaves vegetation spirit? Radish flower? The invincible sect's warehouse was full of them. What? Tianyi was stunned. What radish flower? Lone Moon coughed and corrected himself. "Brother Tianyi, are you talking about the flower that the 1,000 leaves vegetation spirit blooms?" Brother Lone Moon has heard of it. Tianyi's expression lit up. He nodded repeatedly. Yes. That's the flower. I heard that this flower can help to form pills and increase the level of pills. But... He glanced at Tianyi. "Brother Tianyi, you're a soul formation supremacy and a 10th level alchemist. Logically speaking, it shouldn't make a difference whether you have this 1,000-leaf spirit flower or not. Alchemists of his level should rarely fail in refining pills. Sigh, Brother Lone Moon, you don't know this. I don't want this flower to increase the level of pills. I want..." He looked around cautiously. Then he specially set up an isolation array. Carefully he took out a tattered piece of paper. It looked like it had been there for a long time. "Look at this and you'll understand." Lone Moon took the piece of paper and looked at it. He realized that it was a pill recipe. The words "demon-breaking pill" were written in big eye-catching words. Demon-breaking pill? He paused. Chapter 679. That's right. Tianyi nodded. All cultivators, especially those who are undergoing tribulations, are most afraid of developing mental demons. This demon-breaking pill is a 10th grade pill. It allows one to maintain a clear mind during the tribulations, helping one overcome his mental demons. But, one of the main ingredients in this pill recipe is the 1,000-leaf spirit flower. Lone Moon's expression darkened. He had heard of the demon-breaking pill before, but he had never heard that it required radish flowers. No, a 1,000-leaf spirit flower to refine. But there were differences in every small world. It was possible that the pill recipe was different. He did not look at the recipe in detail. Instead, he folded the pill recipe in his hands and returned it. Tianyi, on the other hand, was stunned. He had shown the recipe to Lone Moon because he wanted to share it with him. He did not think that Lone Moon would be so noble. He only looked at the name of the recipe and did not look at it in detail. He had no intention of taking advantage of Lone Moon at all. He was very touched. He had not misjudged Lone Moon. He was a good man. "Brother Tianyi, do you want to ask me if I can find the 1,000-leaf spirit flower?" Lone Moon asked. "Yes." Tianyi nodded and said hopefully, "Brother Lone Moon, do you have a way?" Lone Moon did not answer him directly. Instead he changed the topic. "Brother Tianyi, I see that your mind is clear. There are no signs of mental demons. Your disciples are not at the stage of tribulation yet. Why are you so anxious to refine the demon-breaking pill?" Tianyi's expression changed. He seemed to have thought of something. Anger appeared in his eyes. Sigh. "It's all because of Junior Brother Tianji that my Gui sect is implicated." Lone Moon narrowed his eyes. Why was he talking about Tianji again? This has something to do with Supremacy Tianji? This has something to do with the recipe for the demon-breaking pill. Tianyi looked aggrieved as he sighed and said, 500 years ago, Junior Brother Tianji was still a nascent soul cultivator. He and Supremacy Tengju of the Taiyan sect discovered an alchemy inheritance in a small mystic mirror. The recipe for this demon-breaking pill was one of the items in the inheritance. However, Supremacy Tingju is a talisman cultivator, the legacy of alchemy is useless to him, so the two sects agreed that this legacy will be handed over to Guiyi sect. He put away the exorcism pill recipe on the table and continued, "From now on, we have an agreement. Both sects will provide half of the spirit herbs for us to refine, and half of the pills we obtain will be given to Taiyan sect." Lone Moon nodded. That was fair. Although this legacy belonged to Guiyi sect, they would naturally be the ones to cultivate it. Moreover, they would each get half of the spirit herbs. Because junior brother Tianji was the one who found this legacy, he will naturally be the one to inherit it. Only he can refine some of the precious pills. Tiani said slowly without much envy in his voice. That's why all these years Taiyan sect's pills have been refined by you. Originally, we agreed to train once every 10 years, and it's going to be the day of the transaction in 3 months. He didn't practice. Lone Moon was shocked. Yeah. He looked anxious. Junior brother Tian found Yuluan a few days ago and said that because he was in seclusion, he did not have time to refine the elixirs for trading. Yuluan had no choice but to find me. The more he spoke, the more anxious he became. This Taiyan sect is the #1 immortal sect. Although we've always been on good terms, anyone would be angry if they suddenly changed their mind about something that had already been agreed upon. It would affect the relationship between the two sections. Who knows, they might even accuse us of keeping the elixir legacy for ourselves. What's more, ever since Guiyi sect had I Ching, a soul formation sword cultivator, Taiyan sect had become increasingly wary of Guiyi sect. From time to time they would find fault with them. Now that they had found out about this, they had to fight to the death. Then, what's this exorcism pill? Yuluan heard that Supremacy Tingju has a disciple that he dotes on very much. That disciple used to be his nephew, but his brain was accidentally injured by a fiendish cultivator and he lost his mind. The exorcism pill can make one's heart clear and clear. Coincidentally, it can help him regain his consciousness. Moreover, this legacy was discovered by him and junior brother Tianji together. As long as he says the word, it doesn't matter if the pills are a little late. It's just that. He did not think that the exorcism pill would require 1,000-leaf spirit flowers. In the end, it was Tianji's fault again. Lone Moon recalled the pill recipe and continued asking, "There's something I don't understand. Since Supremacy Tianji gave this recipe to you, it means that he had no intention of keeping it to himself. Although he obtained the legacy, why didn't he just let the disciples of the sect refine it together? Perhaps they would be able to make it in time. Why did he have to give it all to Tianji alone?" "Brother Lone Moon, there's something you don't know," Tiani explained. "Although there's nothing special about this recipe, I don't know why only junior brother Tianji can refine some of the pills in the legacy. It's the same for me. Even if I know the recipe, I still can't refine the pills I need." Lone Moon paused. That was strange. There was such a thing? Logically speaking, apart from some pill refining experience and techniques, the so-called legacy was mostly about various pill recipes. Tiani was a 10th level alchemist. His techniques and experience were definitely not a problem. He even had the correct pill recipe. Why was it that only Tianji could refine the pills? Unless Tianji had some special method to refine the pills that no one else could do. And this method affected the success rate of the pills. There were only a few factors that affected the success rate of the pills. The first was the ingredients. The second was the technique. The third was the level of fire. Haha, what a coincidence. No wonder Tianji wanted to imprison that fiendish cultivator for so many years. So that's what his dark fire was for. Using deviant fire to refine pills was of course different from refining pills with normal fire. "Brother Lone Moon, do you have any idea about this 1,000-leaf spirit flower?" Tiani could not help but ask again. Lone Moon glanced at him. Of course he had an idea. He had a whole bunch of them in his storage bag. They were all from radish that he stuffed into Xinying's storage bag. But he could not take them out just like that. First of all, he could not explain their origins. Second, radish had become an immortal for a long time. It was no longer an ordinary vegetation spirit. Its flower was already a top-grade immortal herb. If he used it to refine pills in the lower realm, who knew what would happen? That was why he could not take it out directly. So he smiled politely and said, "I can only help you find out about this. I've never really seen this thing before." "Even you can't do anything about it?" Tianyi's expression darkened. He looked listless. Lone Moon glanced at him. After some thought, he could not help but remind him, there are so many spirit herbs in the world. Why must brother Tianyi use the 1,000-leaf spirit flower? According to what he knew, there was more than one way to refine the demon-breaking pill. He knew more than 10 different pill recipes. None of them required radish flour. Brother Lone Moon, you must be joking. He smiled bitterly. Apart from raising the grade of pills, the thousand-leaf spirit flower is mainly because it is of the wood element. Its medicinal properties are mild and it has the effect of calming one's mind. That's why it can be used to refine the demon-breaking pill. But apart from raising the grade of pills, the thousand-leaf spirit flower is not the only spirit herb that has the effect of calming one's mind. Chapter 680. But that's what the recipe says. Tian-Yi retorted subconsciously. The recipe only says that the demon-breaking pill needs the thousand-leaf spirit flower, but it doesn't say that other spirit herbs can't produce the demon-breaking pill. Lone Moon pretended to guide him. What's more, be it the pill recipe or the legacy, weren't they all thought up by the predecessors? Since the predecessors could think of it, why should Brother Tian-Yi, as a 10th-level alchemist, be constrained by this? Tian-Yi faltered, his entire being stunned. As if he had never thought of it that way before, shock, confusion, excitement and many other complex emotions flashed across his face. Finally he looked eager to try. That's right. Why hadn't he thought of it that way? The pill recipe was also thought up by others. Why couldn't he think of it? Since there was no thousand-leaf spirit flower, what harm was there in trying something else? If he succeeded, he might even be able to improve the demon-breaking pill recipe. He stood up abruptly as if he had thought of something. His face was full of excitement. Even the spirit chi around his body started to fluctuate. He said hurriedly, "Thank you for the reminder, Brother Lone Moon. I have something to do. I have to leave first." With that said, he turned to leave the mountain. Just as he left the pavilion, he seemed to have thought of something and turned back at the last minute, taking out bottles of pills. "Oh yes, I almost forgot about the proper business. I prepared these for Brother Lone Moon long ago. Take them. If it's not enough, feel free to look for me." He seemed to have thought of something and looked at Lone Moon with a hint of caution. Lone Moon faltered. He took a closer look at the pills. Golden condensation pills? Weren't these used for core formation? Why was he giving them to him? Although Wuxia is one step ahead of you. But in my heart, you are not inferior to anyone else. Given time, you will definitely surpass that fellow. With that said, he even made a fist to encourage him, then turned and flew away. Lone Moon, who was stuffed with a bunch of pills. He was afraid that Lone Moon would be upset when he saw Wuxia's core formation, so he specially brought these pills to comfort him? What the hell? Wuxia had successfully formed his core, and because of Shu Yi's words, he had a clear understanding of his sword Dao, and was even showing signs of developing sword intent. Even the sword chi around him became sharper and sharper. His cultivation speed was so fast that it was shocking. When he first joined Guiyi sect, he was only a disciple at Chi Refinement Stage 7. In addition, he had 3 spirit roots, but in just a few years he was able to form his gold core. Even a genius with a heaven spirit root might not be able to achieve such a speed. Hence, Yulwan came looking for I Ching again, expressing his hope that he would take in more disciples to raise the overall combat standards of Guiyi sect. Lone Moon had already thought of this, so he asked I Ching to agree. Anyway, he had already set up the sword array. There was no difference between throwing one person in and throwing a group of people in. The matter of choosing disciples was all handed over to Yulwan to choose as he saw fit. Anyway, Nameless Peak was big enough. Considering Chef's unreliable personality, he didn't want any disciples to rush up and see a certain someone who stayed in the kitchen all day to affect his image. Thus, Lone Moon set up an array at the last minute, dividing Nameless Peak into 2 parts. The few of them would still stay on the peak. The bottom of the peak would be given to the disciples who entered the peak. They could build their own residences wherever they wanted. As for the matter of teaching, he directly pushed it to Wuxia. What he taught him back then he would teach the others. If they couldn't learn it, they could just throw them into the sword array and be tortured by it. Towards I Ching, Decision, the sect master and the elders of the various peaks were very satisfied. Except for Tian-Yi. His heart ached for those spirit herbs. One must know that on Nameless Peak, there were spirit herbs everywhere. Once these disciples entered, those spirit herbs would have to be moved. Lone Moon and the others didn't think much of it. Instead, his heart ached so much that it bled. He delayed the matter of choosing disciples for a few months. He led the disciples of Danxia Mountain to rush day and night to buy all the spirit herbs. He spent money and effort to buy all the spirit herbs. Nameless Peak, which had always been quiet, was unprecedentedly lively. The entire Guiyi sect was bustling with activity. Whereas the few people in charge were so free that they could only count their spirit stones. Even Zhuo Shuming made use of these few months to successfully consolidate his newly formed core cultivation. He even successfully passed the second level of the sword array and rose to the third level. When he came out, he felt like he was floating. The first thing he did was to discuss with Lone Moon. This time, I was able to form my core successfully because of Senior Sister Shu's guidance. Brother Lone Moon, do you think I should specially go and thank her? When is a suitable time to go? Lone Moon scanned him from head to toe and patted his shoulder with a conflicted expression. I say, $2. Do you know what it means to leave a way out for others? Was he thinking that he didn't stab him enough last time and was in a hurry to stab him again? Zhuo Shuming didn't understand what he meant. He said innocently, shouldn't I go? A moment later, he seemed to have thought of something and nodded hard. Brother Lone Moon is right. If I go just like that, it would be too insincere. I should prepare a generous gift. The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. Haha, as long as you're happy. Hopefully he wouldn't be beaten to death. Yet his eyes lit up. The more he spoke, the more excited he became. I must choose this gift well. It's a pity I don't know what Senior Sister Shu likes. He frowned. A moment later he said, oh yes, Lady Shin is also a girl. Why don't I go and ask her? She would definitely know. With that said, he turned and planned to go to the peak. Come back. Lone Moon reacted quickly and pulled him back. Why don't you grow a brain? Don't always hang around Shining if you have nothing to do. Why? He faltered. Nonsense. Are you blind? Can't you see that there's a vinegar bucket standing beside her? If you go to Shui, you'll at most be beaten to death. If you go to Shining, believe it or not, she'll make you wish you were dead. Lone Moon rolled his eyes at him and sighed. Do you think that Shining will give you any other suggestions apart from eating? If you go and ask her, she'll only make you prepare a Manchu Han Imperial feast. Then what should I do? His expression was troubled. After thinking for a moment, he still didn't know what to give. He could only say, why don't I go and find out what Senior Sister Shu likes? Then I'll go and thank her. He really intended to go. Lone Moon's expression darkened. But he didn't say anything else. For all he knew, he might really be able to help and anger the invader out. But he didn't expect that before Zhuo Shuming could think of a gift to thank her, Tianji would come knocking on his door first. What's more, he carried a sword and fought his way up. A mere golden core cultivator dares to plot against my disciple. Tianji's voice sounded before he arrived. The disciples who were practicing their swordplay at the foot of the mountain felt a strong gust of wind sweeping towards them. There were even several wind blades in the wind. They couldn't dodge in time and were instantly blown away. And those wind blades directly attacked Zhuo Shuming, who was right in front. Chapter 681. Zhuo Shuming faltered and instinctively raised his sword to defend himself, but he was suppressed by the suppressive force of a soul formation cultivator and could not move at all. Those deadly wind blades were about to hit him. Lone Moon reached out to grab him and dodged in a flash. In the next moment, there was a loud rumbling sound as the wind blades smashed into the ground, leaving a few meters deep crater. The entire nameless peak trembled, and even the newly built platform for practicing swordsmanship was instantly turned into a pile of rubble. Lone Moon's expression darkened as he sent a voice transmission to Chef on the mountain peak while looking at the furious Tianji. Supremacy Tianji, why did you suddenly come and hurt my nameless peak disciple? Tianji became even angrier as he glared at Zhuo Shuming. Hurt him? A despicable person like him, if I don't kill him today, I won't be able to vent my anger. With that said, he unleashed his suppressive force towards everyone. Lone Moon and Zhuo Shuming were fine, but the people practicing here were all disciples who had just entered the peak. Many of them were rookies at the chi refinement stage. How could they withstand the suppressive force of a soul formation cultivator? They all fell to their knees and spat out blood. Shit. Lone Moon was furious too, but he could not attack them directly. These disciples were about to collapse. An even stronger suppressive force suddenly came from above, pushing back Tianji's suppressive force. Chef arrived just in time. With a wave of his hand, a row of spirit swords flew towards Tianji. Tianji faltered and hurriedly dodged, but he could not do so in time. Half of his sleeve was cut in half. You. Tianji was furious. He looked up at I Ching, who suddenly appeared, his eyes burning. I Ching, are you protecting this evil creature? I Ching faltered and turned to Lone Moon questioningly. What was going on? Was this person crazy? Lone Moon shook his head, indicating that he was not sure either. Just as he was about to ask, Yu Luan, who was on the main peak, also sensed the commotion and rushed over. The elders of the various peaks also rushed over. Even Tian Yi flew up. What's going on? Yulwan's face was filled with shock as he swept his gaze across the severely injured disciples on the ground and hurriedly called for some disciples to check on their injuries. He was both anxious and angry. One must know that these people were the most suitable seedlings for sword cultivation that he had carefully selected. Guiyi sect only had core cultivators, and their battle power had always been pitifully low. Therefore, when they were outside, it was inevitable that they would be treated as pushovers by other sections. It wasn't easy for a sword cultivator supremacy to come. He had long wanted to change the situation in the sect, but he didn't expect that the first batch of disciples would be injured in just a few days. Junior brother Tianji, why are you doing this? Tianyi was a man with a strong sense of collective honor. Naturally, he understood Yulwan's intentions. He looked up at Tianji. It was obvious that he was the one who made the first move. Today, I only want to kill that sinister and vicious little bastard. He pointed at Zhuoshuming and said coldly, "You better not block me. Otherwise, don't blame me for not showing mercy." Zhuoshuming? Yulwan was stunned. When did Uncle Master Tianji have a feud with a mere Golden Core disciple? Uncle Master, what did this disciple do? Do you really want to do this? What did I do? Tianji snorted and glared daggers at Zhuoshuming. He said word by word, I also want to ask him on the day of the competition, what did you do to little E? What made her become like that? Sui. Everyone was shocked. Thinking carefully, they indeed hadn't seen her for a long time. Seen your sister Shu? Zhuoshuming was also stunned. He asked with some concern, what happened to her? You still dare to ask what happened? Tianji's eyes were filled with murderous intent. Ever since the competition, her condition has been worsening. Now her meridians are all broken and her golden core is showing signs of shattering. What? Little E is injured? Shu Yuan panicked. After all, she was his daughter. He would definitely be worried. No, I have to go and take a look. With that said, he left everyone behind and turned to fly away. Uncle Master Tianji, is there some misunderstanding? Yuan asked. How long had it been since the competition? He didn't see anything wrong with her? There's no misunderstanding. Tianji raised his sword and pointed at Zhuoshuming. Little E was fine before, but after she fought with him, she has been unconscious ever since. If he didn't do anything, who else could it be? Everyone was taken aback and their expressions changed. Everyone had clearly seen what had happened in the competition that day. Zhuoshuming did not even make a move. He went through the tribulation and formed his core. What's more, Zhuoshuming's cultivation level was lower than his opponent's. Even if he wanted to do anything, he couldn't have done it in front of so many people. Uncle Master Tianji, we saw it with our own eyes. He didn't do anything. Yulwan explained. I think Uncle Master is too worried. Humph, he has never been on good terms with my disciple. What's more, little E kept calling out his name in anger when she was unconscious. I can't think of anyone else. Tianji refused to let the matter rest. He looked as if he would not rest until he killed Zhuoshuming. I must kill him today. With that said, he activated his spirit chi again and conjured thousands of icicles. He shot them towards Zhuoshuming, not caring if there was anyone else around. Uncle Master, Yulwan exclaimed. He wanted to save I Ching, but he could not move because of Tianji's suppressive aura. I Ching frowned. He released all the sword chi in his body. There was a series of clanging sounds. The icicles shattered and fell. The sword chi filled the air, forcing Tianji to retreat several steps. With a twist of his hand, a spirit sword appeared in I Ching's hand. With some impatience, he said in a low voice, If you want to fight, come at me. If you want to fight, hurry up. He had to rush back to cook. He was only halfway through cooking. You. Tianji's expression contorted. You seem to be really angry. He gripped the sword in his hand tightly. Do you really think I'm afraid of you? Seeing that the two of them were about to fight, Yulwan's heart trembled. He rushed out. Uncle Masters, please wait. It would be terrible if the two of them started fighting. Yulwan hurriedly advised, now is not the time to fight. Uncle Master Tianji, Shu Yi's condition is more important. Why don't we go and see what's wrong with her first? We can save her and figure out the reason. Tianji's expression darkened. He hesitated. After all, he had tried many ways to wake Shu Yi up. What more the others? Uncle Master Tianyi has always been good at medicine. Why don't we let him take a look? Yulwan immediately added. Tianyi nodded. Tianji glared at Zhuoshuming again. Then he kept his sword and turned to fly towards Danxia Mountain. Everyone looked at each other and flew down as well. Chapter 682. Danxia Peak was different from the other peaks. It was actually a double peak. Tianyi and Tianji were both on this peak. Although Tianyi was the peak lord, he and his disciples actually lived on the left side of the floating peak. Tianji lived on the right side. Because he had not accepted any other disciples apart from Shu Yi, the peak seemed a little deserted. At the peak of the mountain there was a single palace. Everyone followed Tianji to the peak and entered the palace. They headed straight for the back palace. Lone Moon and the others walked at the back. Just as they entered the inner palace, they suddenly stopped. "Chef, this aura." He subconsciously sent a voice transmission to the person beside him. I Ching nodded. "I see it too." Lone Moon frowned. "Let's go in and take a look first." He followed, but the deeper they went, the thicker the aura became. When they reached a room in the back palace, the entire courtyard was already filled with that aura. It was so thick that they could not breathe. Just as everyone was about to push the door open, "Wait!" Lone Moon called out. He stepped forward and pulled Yuan back. I Ching also formed an array. White light flashed under his feet. A huge array appeared under their feet. A translucent shield rose up and surrounded all the elders. "This is..." Yuan hesitated. Why did they suddenly set up a defensive array? Tianji, who was at the front, also turned to look at them. His expression turned cold. He glared at I Ching. "What are you doing?" I Ching ignored him. He only looked at everyone and explained in a low voice, "There's something else in the house." Everyone stared blankly at him. Before they could ask, Tianji panicked. With a furious expression he said, "I Ching, what do you mean by this? This is little Yi's room. Are you suspecting that I'm up to something?" I Ching ignored him. Instead, he directly summoned a spirit sword. "Take a look and you'll know." With that said, he waved his hand. "What are you doing?" Tianji was shocked. All he saw was a beam of sword chi flying in front of him. The next moment he heard a loud crash. A section of the room was cut off. The roof collapsed. "I Ching, you." Tianji was furious. Just as he was about to attack, he heard a loud bang. A figure was thrown out of the room and landed heavily in the courtyard. That person was covered in blood and had a weak aura. The robe he was wearing was somewhat familiar. "This is Elder Shu." An elder recognized the person on the ground and exclaimed, "Wasn't this Taoist Master Shu Yuan who was in a hurry to see his daughter? Why did it become like this?" Before they could be surprised, the next moment clouds of pitch-black gas suddenly surged out of the collapsed room in front of them, rushing toward them. Just as it was about to engulf everyone, the defensive formation under their feet lit up and instantly blocked the black gas outside. However, the black gas outside had already spread to the entire courtyard. Wherever the black gas passed through, the flowers in the courtyard instantly withered. Even the collapsed beams and tiles cracked and weathered inch by inch, turning into a pile of sand in an instant. "This is demonic energy," someone exclaimed. They finally recognized what the black chi was and felt a chill in their hearts. Fortunately, Supremacy I Ching had set up a defense array in advance. Otherwise, they would not be able to withstand the demonic chi even if it touched them. But why was there demonic energy here? "That's Senior Sister Shu Yi?" Swishumming's eyes suddenly widened as he looked in front of him in disbelief. Everyone was stunned. They subconsciously looked up and realized that there was a person floating in the air amidst the thick demonic energy. She was wearing the Dharma robe of a personal disciple of Gui sect. It was Shu Yi, whom Tianji had said was seriously injured and unconscious. However, her entire body was now enveloped in demonic chi. Her originally delicate and pretty face was now covered in black demonic runes like a spider web. Her eyes were crimson red as if she had lost her mind. Waves of black chi were continuously being emitted from her body. This demonic energy is coming from her body. Yuan was shocked, his face full of disbelief. There was more and more demonic energy around them. It seemed to be spreading towards the entire Gui sect. Little E. Tianji was also shocked. As if recalling something, a trace of guilt flashed across his face. He immediately flew out as if trying to stop the person in the air. "Uncle Master, don't." Yuan wanted to stop him, but it was too late. Tianji had already rushed out. Almost at the same time, the Dharma robe on his body was corroded by the demonic energy. With a few sizzling sounds, his skin was burned. Tianji's expression changed. But he still rushed towards Shu Yi, wanting to stop her. Shu Yi suddenly raised her hand and waved. A wave of demonic energy shot towards Tianji. Instantly he was slapped back. It was obvious that she had not woken up yet. Lone Moon glanced at Chef. He was about to ask him to do it. Shu Yi's system was also anxious. It started to make a small announcement. Host. Hurry and wake up. Don't let the demonic energy consume your mind. Host. Host. Then there was a sizzling sound. A tiny bolt of lightning flashed across Shu Yi's body. Shu Yi's originally expressionless face contorted. A trace of pain flashed across her face. Her bloodshot eyes darkened. Slowly she regained consciousness. System? A trace of confusion flashed across Shu Yi's eyes. Before she could sort out the situation around her, she saw Wuxia in the array formation. Her pupils shrank. What happened during the competition flashed across her mind. Anger surged out of her. Her eyes lit up with red light again. Murderous intent filled the air. Wuxia. She gritted her teeth as she shouted his name. It was as if she wanted to eat him alive. Even the demonic energy around her suddenly increased. She waved her hand and directed the demonic energy around her to attack him. The demonic energy that had been moving around seemed to have received an order. It turned into thousands of black sharp blades and attacked the center. The defensive array beneath everyone's feet shattered, and their hearts went cold. Seeing that the black chi was about to surge towards them, Yi Qing turned his hand, and a ball of red flame burst out from his body, and rushed towards the demonic chi. There was a sizzling sound. The demonic chi dissipated as if it had met its natural enemy. The demonic chi retreated bit by bit. The entire courtyard was a fiery red. In less than 2 breaths' time, the demonic chi disappeared completely. It pounced towards the source of the flames floating in the air. Shu Yi instantly let out a scream, but found that he couldn't escape the flames at all. A piercing pain came from all over his body, and he didn't care whether others could hear him or not. He shouted madly, "System, save me!" Ding. Encountered an unknown error. Unable to defend against this kind of flames. Lonman's expression darkened. Yi Qing was the manager. Of course this intruder could not cut off his fire system. He hurriedly tugged at the person beside him to remind him, "Chef." The system had not left its host body yet. Only then did Chef retract his palm, and the flames around Shu Yi's body receded. Chapter 683. Little Yi. Tianji took the opportunity to fly out and catch the dying Shu Yi. But he did not stop and flew out on his sword. Uncle Master Tianji Yulwan reacted and was about to stop him when Tianji suddenly turned back and threw a Dharma artifact at him. But it was not aimed at Yulwan but at Wuxia who was in the crowd. Tianji moved too fast. Just as the Dharma artifact was about to hit Wuxia, Chef turned his hand and slashed at it, hitting the Dharma artifact. Tianji, who was in midair, took the opportunity to conjure some sort of seal. In a flash, he disappeared into thin air. Everyone in the courtyard was stunned. They had not recovered from what happened just now. After a while Yulwan asked, "Uncle Master Yi Qing, Shu Yi she turned into a demon." Yi Qing replied coldly. Everyone, Yulwan and the elders could not react to the fact that Shu Yi had turned into a demon. But the truth was right in front of them. The demonic chi in the courtyard that day could not be faked. They just did not understand how a good person could turn into a demon just like that. And she even injured Elder Shu Yuan. No matter what, he was Shu Yi's father. Now not only were his meridians broken, even his cultivation level dropped from late-stage nascent soul to early-stage nascent soul. He had not woken up yet. And supremacy Tianji, he was a soul formation supremacy in the sect. It was normal for him to protect his own disciple. But he did not even explain and just ran away with Shu Yi. They could not understand this. No matter how much he doted on his disciple, there was no need to betray the sect. Until Lone Moon accidentally revealed to everyone that the fiendish cultivator Zhong Yi had escaped from the sect and did not come looking for them on purpose. And they even found a secret room on Danxia Mountain. There were indeed traces of fiendish cultivators inside. Everyone was enlightened. Looks like Tianji had turned into a demon long ago. Tianyi let out a long sigh. No wonder junior brother Yin would. He didn't continue but everyone understood what he meant. Tianji had a cold personality. He did not have a good relationship with the people in the sect. Perfected Yin was one of the few people in the sect who was on good terms with Tianji. Occasionally he would go to Danxia Mountain. He must have found out something he shouldn't have. That was why he was killed by Tianji. No wonder they hadn't found the murderer after so long. No wonder Yin Jinren didn't even have a chance to ask for help and could only self-destruct his nascent soul. The more everyone thought about it, the more shocked they became. Was Tianji's doing as well? Did he have a plan in mind when he brought them to see Shu Yi? He thought of Shu Yuan, who had yet to wake up and had almost lost his nascent soul cultivation. If he could even lay his hands on his own father, what more them? If they had entered the house that day, thinking of this, everyone shuddered. Fortunately, Uncle Master I Ching had detected it in advance. Otherwise, they would have been completely wiped out. Lone Moon didn't say anything. He had to admit that although they were heading in the right direction, they were thinking too much. Tianji did not become a demon. Shu Yi was the only one who became a demon. He left because he was afraid that the fact that he imprisoned a fiendish cultivator and killed an elder of the sect would be exposed. That was why he ran away with them. Shening had sealed the demonic qi in Zhuosheng's body and the demonic seed in Shu Yi's body. In order to frame Zhuosheng, Shu Yi released it without hesitation. That caused the demonic seed to awaken and turn her into a demon. And the reason she had been unconscious for so many days was because the demonic qi in her body was slowly eating away at her original spirit qi. That meant that she was actually turning into a demon. Lone Moon was a little confused about this. When Shening said that the two seals were connected, they didn't think much of it. After all, Shu Yi had the system. The demonic seed was also sealed by the system. If it could seal it once, it could naturally seal it a second time. But who would have thought that the system would be so useless? It didn't even notice that the demonic seed had already escaped. It even made Shu Yi turn into a demon. One must know that the so-called demonic seed was different from demonic qi. The demonic seed was the embodiment of pure evil thoughts of the demon race. It also carried a part of the demon's soul that gave birth to the demonic seed. Once it entered the body, it would merge with the original soul until the other party completely turned into a demon. Back then, Celestial Emperor Chenggu wanted to get rid of the demonic seed in his body. He had to split a part of his soul and use the power of reincarnation to cleanse the demonic qi. Much less Shu Yi, a golden core cultivator. So the result of the system's momentary lapse was that Shu Yi completely turned into a demon. No wonder the parenting system said that this 001 was a system that was about to be eliminated. Sect Master, what do you think about this? All the elders looked at Yu Luan with lingering fear. This is a serious matter. The demonic qi is really too dangerous. Yu Luan's face turned green. Then he said in a low voice, although it's not good for Guiyi sect's matters to spread, we have to take precautions. We need to inform the various immortal sects as soon as possible and tell them the reason behind this. A fiendish cultivator with demonic qi and a soul formation cultivator who turned into a demon. This was a huge threat to the entire immortal sections. Everyone nodded in agreement. So in an instant, Shu Yi and Tianji turned from soul formation supremacies and genius disciples into evil demonic cultivators who betrayed the immortal sections. They were despised and hunted down by the entire immortal sections. Shu Yi originally wanted to frame Zhuosheng and make him a fiendish cultivator that everyone wanted to kill. But she didn't expect things to turn around. Zhuosheng was still a genius cultivator while she became the one that everyone wanted to kill. Lone Moon wondered how she would react when she completely regained her senses. It would be best if she added tens of points of resentment. Lone Moon pinched his fingers and calculated. If the enemy continued to send people over like this, perhaps this matter would be settled very soon. This was the easiest batch of invaders he had ever seen. Apart from teaching a slightly stupid sword cultivator, it was basically an easy win. Ever since Shu Yi and Tianji escaped from Guiyi sect, there was no more news of them. He had to admit that it was a little boring without the system's broadcast. So boring that Lone Moon couldn't help but play landlord with the parenting system. Zhuosheng, on the other hand, sighed for a long while as if he couldn't accept it. Senior Sister Shu, who was giving him pointers just a moment ago, turned into a fiendish cultivator the next moment. Lone Moon solemnly said to him, 2 pieces. The most important thing to do as a person is to have some F*** sense, understand? Zhuosheng was stunned for a long time and didn't understand. Brother Lone Moon's words are so profound. What could he do if he didn't understand at all? Lone Moon sighed. He could not be bothered to continue mocking him. He turned around and kicked him into the sword array. Then he increased the intensity of the training. If the training in the past was like a devil's training, then it was already hellish now. Shu Yi's target had always been Zhuosheng. One day she would come knocking on his door. Now that she was already a demon, although she still had a mortal body, she was already equivalent to half a demon. Her battle strength had increased by several levels, while Zhuosheng was still a weak golden core cultivator. If she really came knocking on his door, he would be a piece of cake. If he didn't make use of the time to cultivate now, when would he? Chapter 684. Lone Moon felt that as an invader with a mission at that, Shui would not keep a low profile. There was no news now, perhaps it was because she had yet to fully control the demonic chi in her body, and it would come out on its own soon. However, before she could make a move, Tianyi had some unexpected gains a few years later. Tianyi was already at the late stage of soul formation, but he had been stuck at the last step, unable to advance. Lone Moon's casual advice the last time seemed to have given Tianyi a new direction. He directly threw himself into modifying elixirs. Perhaps he was really talented in refining elixirs. Not only did he really modify the demon-breaking pill, but he also started to study other heaven-grade elixir recipes. As time went by, he gained quite a bit. The entire Danxia mountain would face a few pill tribulations from time to time, or there would be a few cauldrons exploding. Yet Tianyi got more and more excited the more he practiced. His alchemy skills improved by leaps and bounds. He was a core cultivator. Apart from normal cultivation, core cultivators could also cultivate through the pill mist formed when refining elixirs. Tianyi refined elixirs so crazily, his cultivation naturally improved as well, and it was a huge improvement. Hence he was about to ascend. It was still early in the morning as Tianyi refined a cauldron of heaven-grade elixirs. The sky suddenly darkened. A huge bolt of lightning the likes of which no one in Guiyi sect had ever seen before suddenly descended from the sky. Then, it went around Nameless Peak above and landed on Danxia Peak below with a loud boom. In an instant, Tianyi's cave abode and a few other palaces beside it were smashed into pieces. Before anyone could react, the entire sect's protective mountain array was suddenly activated, but it still could not block the vast power of heaven and earth. Sect Master Yuluan hurriedly flew over from the main peak. Only then did he see that frighteningly thick bolt of lightning. And the black thunderclouds in the sky. Could this be? Yuluan did not dare to believe his eyes. It's the lightning tribulation of ascension. I Ching and Lone Moon, who just happened to be moving the spirit herbs over, looked at the sky together, then replied with certainty. Ascension. Yuluan was shocked, his expression slightly dazed. Could the person in the lightning be Uncle Master Tianyi? Yuluan was even more astonished, but his legs couldn't help but turn to jelly under the immense might of the heavens and earth. He felt as if he would be injured by the pressure in the air even if he took another look. Tianyi's lightning tribulation came too quickly. Moreover, it was early in the morning and the sky was not completely bright. That was why he did not notice it immediately. Lone Moon subconsciously wanted to conjure a seal to set up an array so that the others would not be affected. After all, this was the Ascension lightning tribulation. After some thought, he nudged Chef beside him. You do it. I Ching paused. What? It's safer if you set it up, he added. After all, Chef was the boss of the one who struck the lightning bolt. Didn't he see that the heavenly Tao even avoided Nameless Peak? I Ching's face darkened, but he still turned around and flew out to set up the array. In a short while, a white array appeared around the pill peak. Even the protective mountain array above their heads opened up a big hole from the top to facilitate the heavenly thunder. Yuluan also reacted and hurriedly went down to arrange for the disciples of Danxia Mountain to evacuate while telling the disciples of the other peaks to stay away. This was the Ascension lightning tribulation. It was different from other things. Disciples with lower cultivation levels might be suppressed by the vast pressure of heaven and earth just by looking at it. That would affect their cultivation. What's more, it was just the first mental demon tribulation. The lightning tribulation later on would only get stronger and stronger. The two of them were very fast. By the time I Ching was done setting up the array, Yuluan had already evacuated most of the people. And Tianyi had also successfully passed the mental demon tribulation. The following lightning bolts struck one after another, illuminating Guiyi sect in a snow-white light. The entire Danxia mountain was struck by the lightning bolts at a speed visible to the naked eye. Inch by inch, it turned into ashes. In less than 20 bolts of lightning, it was already half a length shorter. What was amazing was that although the lightning bolts were fierce no matter how they struck, not a single bit of the lightning pressure leaked outside of Danxia mountain. It was as if they were targeted at a fixed point. The lightning bolts were extremely accurate and only aimed at Tianyi's head. Tianyi, who was sitting in the middle, was using all his strength to resist the lightning tribulation. Although he had a feeling these few days that the Ascension lightning tribulation was about to arrive. That was why he was refining pills like crazy to accumulate some spirit chi so that he could pass the lightning tribulation in one go. But he did not expect to realize that the Ascension lightning tribulation was not as simple as he thought it would be. The bolts of lightning seemed to want to split his entire body apart. The pain was comparable to a heart-wrenching, soul-crushing and soul-shattering pain. He could only try his best to absorb the violent spirit chi around him and use the gaps between the lightning bolts to heal his injuries. The entire process was undoubtedly a complete transformation. But he was indeed a complete transformation. The so-called Ascension Lightning Tribulation was originally a process for those who were attempting to ascend to immortality to shed their mortal bodies and grow immortal bones. And those who were going through the tribulation could only endure it. Tianyi was already covered in blood, but he still gritted his teeth and persevered. There were already faint signs of his immortal bones growing on his body. Until the last bolt of lightning struck, Tianyi used the last bit of spirit chi in his body to forcibly resist the lightning tribulation. The suffocating spiritual pressure in the surroundings became more and more solid. In an instant, it condensed into immortal chi and began to surge wildly into Tianyi's body, helping him to grow new immortal bones and at the same time healing his injuries. The bloody man who was on the verge of death just a moment ago was recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. Even the suppressive force on his body had completely changed. Tianyi heaved a sigh of relief. Only then did he feel a sense of success. At the same time, a golden ray of light broke through the layers of thunder clouds and descended from the sky, directly hitting his body. The world that was originally incomparably familiar to him suddenly felt a sense of rejection. Even his body felt light and he could not help but fly towards the sky. Success. Uncle Master Tianyi is about to ascend. Yulwan was overjoyed and could not help but blurt out. He was both excited and emotional. It has been tens of thousands of years since anyone has successfully ascended here. I did not expect it to be Uncle Master Tianyi. This is great. Sensing that the danger had passed, the disciples all came out one after another. They looked at the descending heavenly light with excitement and surprise. Tianyi's figure was slowly flying towards the sky along with the light. He looked completely different. His entire body was filled with faint white immortal chi. Just as he was about to fly into the realm gate above, he seemed to have thought of something. His figure paused and he suddenly turned around, wanting to return. But because he was not very familiar with the use of immortal chi, he did not manage to restrain the power of the heavenly light. He was like a duck that could not swim. He waved his hand in the air a few times. Only then did he slowly descend halfway, but he still could not leave that heavenly light. He could only wave his hand and shout in this direction, "Brother Lone Moon, is Brother Lone Moon there?" For a moment, the gazes of the entire sect were all fixed on Lone Moon. Yet Tianyi's shout became louder and louder. He waved his hand at him forcefully. "Brother Lone Moon, hurry, hurry, come over here for a moment. I have something to tell you." "Lone Moon, damn it. Why do you have something to tell me? It's not like you don't have disciples." Chapter 685. The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. He had no choice but to fly over under the loving gaze of the entire sect. "What's the matter? Brother Lone Moon." Tianyi glanced at him and suddenly reached out to take out the storage bag by his side. The storage ring on his hand, along with the defensive Dharma artifact hairpin on his head, everything that could be used on him was taken off. Then, she shoved everything into his hands and said with a serious look on her face, "I thought that these might be useless once we reached the upper realm, so I gave them all to you. Brother Lone Moon, your aptitude far exceeds mine. You will definitely ascend successfully. Old friend, I will wait for your good news up there." Lone Moon. What's with this feeling of being taken care of? But spirit stones that were delivered to his doorstep, it would be a waste not to take them. Carat Omega Carat, thank you Brother Tianyi. We're all brothers, there's no need to be so polite. He waved his hand and said sincerely, "I can ascend thanks to your advice that day. These things are nothing." He wanted to say more but the pull from the realm gate was getting stronger. He could only say hurriedly, "I have to go, take care Brother Lone Moon." With that said he flew up. Lone Moon looked at the pile of things in his hand, his expression darkened. He sighed and took out a white jade token and threw it over. "Take this." Tianyi caught it reflexively. Upon closer inspection, it was just an ordinary jade token. It was neither a Dharma artifact nor a talisman. There were two words engraved on both sides. On one side was Bo Si and on the other side was invincible. "This is..." Tianyi was stunned. "You'll know when you get up." Lone Moon had no intention of explaining and just waved his hand. In the next moment, Tianyi was already pulled up by the heavenly light and disappeared in the golden light in the sky. In the next moment, the golden light dispersed and turned into a spirit rain that fell down. All the disciples looked delighted and sat down one by one. They began to absorb this rare rich spirit qi and realized the remaining trace of heavenly Tao in the sky. Even the nascent soul elders sat down. One must know that in tens of thousands of years, there had not been a cultivator who ascended. This was a rare opportunity. Lone Moon also flew back and met I Ching's probing gaze. "What are you looking at?" Lone Moon glared at him. Chef narrowed his eyes. "You just gave him a disciple token of invincible sect? So what if I am?" Lone Moon casually stuffed the things in his hands back into his storage bag. She had at least paid the school fees. "Oh." Chef narrowed his eyes and looked at him. "Didn't they say that the invincible sect was too difficult to raise and that they would no longer accept people?" "Oh, your sister." The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. "Get rid of those disgusting wavy lines. Don't learn blindly from Shining." Yu Hong said that the sect's elixir business is getting bigger and bigger and boss cannot just rely on Boss Lan and Spirit Chi. Of. What's more, Boss Lan still has to refine weapons, create talismans, water Radish, and now that Radish's unlucky son is here, he also has to occasionally guide the disciples in their cultivation. Lone Moon counted off the items. It was hard to do business these days, okay? What else? He rolled his eyes. Do you want to go back and help practice? Chef stiffened and changed the topic seriously. Oh yes, I remembered that I cooked less porridge for breakfast. Master must not be full. Father Nyo, I'll go back first. Master was not here, he could not afford to offend him. Small fry. I Ching deeply felt that he was still suitable to be the chef. He turned around and wanted to fly back to Nameless Peak. Suddenly, a loud rumble came from the foot of the mountain. The entire Guiyi sect shook. The great protective array that was still enveloping the sky suddenly darkened. The 8 spiritual swords that were originally surrounding the sect, with a few cracking sounds, broke into pieces. Someone destroyed the formation core. I Ching's face darkened. He turned to look at the mountain gate on the right. Someone must have snuck in when Tiani was going through the tribulation. Yuan also woke up from his meditation. Uncle Master I Ching, this. Just as he was about to ask, he suddenly heard a commotion coming from the foot of the mountain. He could faintly feel a large amount of evil qi surging into Guiyi sect. A disciple hurriedly flew up. Sect Master. The disciple reported anxiously. Reporting to Sect Master, a large number of devil cultivators suddenly appeared at the foot of the mountain. They are about to break through the mountain gate and barge in. Now. Yuan's expression changed as he instantly understood what was going on. Uncle Master Tianyi had just ascended. Although this was a good thing, Guiyi sect had one less soul formation cultivator. In addition, Tianji had defected a few years ago. Guiyi sect only had one soul formation cultivator left. These fiendish cultivators definitely wanted to take down Guiyi sect before they recovered. Can you tell where these fiendish cultivators came from? He asked in a low voice. Since they dared to attack Guiyi sect, there must be quite a number of them. They must be from the fiendish sect. It's the heavenly demon sect, the disciple answered with certainty. Heavenly demonic sect. Yuan was stunned. We have no enmity with them, why would they attack our sect? The more he thought about it, the more anxious he became. While thinking, he anxiously arranged, Go, inform the 3 peak masters of the 3 upper peaks and all the nascent soul-perfected ones to follow me to meet the enemy. The other peak lords were guarding the sect to prevent any accidents. Tell them to focus on the eye of the great mountain guarding formation. Yes. The disciple hurriedly turned and went to inform them. Yuan then looked at I Ching and said, Uncle Master, let's go. I Ching understood what he meant. He immediately turned and flew in the direction of the mountain gate. Yuan's heart calmed down and he immediately followed. Lone Moon was bored, so he followed as well. The few of them had yet to reach the mountain gate when they saw a large patch of evil qi occupying the forest in front of the mountain gate. The other side seemed to have already made a move. The disciples at the mountain gate were heavily injured. They were barely hanging on by relying on the array formation at the gate. That array formation was left behind by the founding patriarch of Guiyi sect. It was very difficult for cultivators below the soul formation stage to break through it. Before Yuan could heave a sigh of relief, he heard a loud boom. He saw the array stone at the mountain gate shatter. Cracks appeared on the array formation at the gate. Then, a familiar suppressive force of a soul formation cultivator swept over. The suppressive force is Tianji. Yuan was stunned. His face was full of disbelief. As if recalling something, his face turned pale. Heavenly demonic sect. So it's him? What do you mean, sect master? Lonman's expression darkened. Actually, he and Chef already knew that the person leading the group was Tianji. But looking at Yulwan's expression, he seemed to know something. Yulwan's expression became even uglier. His brows seemed to be knitted together. Then he explained, I heard that a while ago the sect master of Heavenly Demonic Sect was suddenly killed by someone. Since then, Heavenly Demonic Sect has changed masters. What's more, that new sect master led Heavenly Demonic Sect to conquer several fiendish cultivation sections. There are signs of them unifying the demonic sections. I just didn't expect that person to actually be Tianji. He thought that Guiyi sect had never mistreated this soul formation supremacy. But he didn't expect that not only would he join the demonic sects and betray them, but after unifying the demonic sects, the first thing he did was to attack Guiyi sect. This made Yulwan feel somewhat bitterly disappointed. The array formation at the mountain gate had already been completely broken. The person who appeared at the gate was indeed Tianji. Chapter 686. Tianji, Guiyi sect has treated you well. Why did you gather fiendish cultivators to attack us? Yulwan could not help but ask with a pained expression. He really wanted to know. Tianji snorted. He did not feel that there was anything wrong with his actions. Instead, he said with hatred, Yulwan, now that things have come to this, why do you have to continue acting in front of me? Do you really think I don't know that you've been unhappy with me for a long time? Every day you plan to get rid of me. Didn't you invite this sword cultivator into the sect to force me to leave? With that said, he glared at I Ching. What did you say? Yulwan's expression was one of disbelief. He had never thought that Tianji would think this way. Tianji continued to speak with conviction. You forced me to do all this. I'm here today to seek justice. Guiyi sect deserves to suffer such a fate. Yulwan was so angry that he could not speak. He did not think that Tianji would twist the truth like this. Lone Moon frowned. Indeed, a person whose thoughts were already crooked. Even if he did something like betraying his master and destroying his ancestors, he had many reasons to be punished. Even if, as he said, there were people in the sect who were unhappy with him, no one forced him to betray and become a fiend. Why bother with all this nonsense? Chef, who was at the side, calculated the time it took to cook. With a turn of his hand, he summoned his spirit sword. His expression darkened. Let's do it. They were in a rush to cook. If they could do it, what was the point of babbling? Tianji frowned. A hint of fear flashed across his face. But he did not face I Ching alone. Instead, he waved his hand behind him and instructed, Go. Take down Guiyi sect. Yes, sect master. The eyes of the fiendish cultivators beside him lit up. They responded in unison. As if they had been waiting for a long time, they immediately swarmed forward. The dermic artifacts in their hands attacked together. They covered the sky. Some of the fiendish cultivators even flew up into the sky. They seemed to want to be the first to enter the sect and snatch the credit. The evil aura belonging to the fiendish cultivators permeated the entire Guiyi sect. Even the surrounding spirit chi retreated. At a glance, there were actually tens of thousands of fiendish cultivators. There were quite a number of nascent soul cultivators. They looked no less than the perfected ones in the sect. Yulwan's heart tightened. He panicked. He hurriedly summoned his dermic artifacts and appeared in front of the heavily injured disciples. He blocked them and shouted, We cannot let the fiendish cultivators enter the sect. All disciples follow me and form an array. As he spoke, he turned to look at Lone Moon. Perhaps he remembered Yi who had just ascended. Little friend Lone Moon Tianji, he said. No need. Lone Moon squeezed the fan in his hand and replied with a carefree expression. Yulwan paused and was about to persuade him. You Tian Shan you Tian you. Tian you. Gg, a you Tian you. Yulwan was only brushed by the sword chi. His legs gave way. He barely managed to stabilize himself before he fell to his knees. Not to mention the fiendish cultivators who were facing this sword chi. The people who were about to fly toward Guiyi sect fell to the ground like dumplings. They all fell to the ground like dumplings. They could not move, as if they were under some kind of heavy pressure. Because they were in such a rush, some of them fell to the ground, screaming. Even Tianji lost his balance. He coughed and spat out a mouthful of blood. He looked at I Ching in disbelief. This is impossible. They were both late-stage soul formation cultivators. Why did I Ching have such a terrifying sword chi? He could not even resist. I Ching could not be bothered with him. He turned the sword in his hand. Instantly, a sky full of spirit swords appeared. With a few swooshes they fell in front of the mountain gate like rain. Every time a sword fell, a gust of wind blew. It was as if thousands of invisible swords were attacking the fiendish cultivators on the ground. For a moment, screams could be heard. Those with high cultivation were able to withstand the sword chi that filled the sky and dodge some. Those with low cultivation were not so lucky and were directly swept away by the sword chi, losing all signs of life. In the blink of an eye, more than half of the fiendish cultivators were gone. Not to mention the fiendish cultivators, even Yulwan could not react. He stared at the fiendish cultivators lying on the ground. All the mountain masters brought their disciples and rushed over to help. Sect Master, the fiendish cultivators are attacking. Before they could finish speaking, they saw the tragic scene in front of the mountain gate. Everyone, the battle between the righteous and fiendish cultivators had begun. The battle between the righteous and fiendish cultivators had ended. This was definitely the fastest battle they had ever seen. On the other side, Yi Qing was already walking towards Tianji. With every step he took, the surrounding sword chi became heavier. There were more dumplings on the ground. Even the fiendish cultivators who were far away from the mountain gate took the opportunity to escape. People of the fiendish sect treasured their lives the most. They were originally a group of people. Naturally, they did not care about morality. In addition, the heavenly demon sect had only just unified the fiendish sect. There were not many who were truly loyal to Tianji. Lone Moon walked towards Tianji. He raised his hand and sent a sword chi towards his dantian. Instantly, it dispersed all the spirit chi in his body and sealed all his meridians. Then he picked Tianji up and dragged him back like a sack. Then he threw him to Sect Master Yulwan. Do whatever you want with him. Trouble. Yulwan was stunned. Then he hurriedly caught Tianji. Looking at the supremacy who was supposed to be respected by everyone in the sect, he felt complicated. Thinking of what Tianji said earlier, his expression darkened. Yet Tianji did not look the least bit remorseful. As if thinking of something, he laughed out loud. Ah! Do you really think that with a soul formation sword cultivator Guiyi sect would have nothing to worry about? What do you mean? Yulwan was shocked. He understood what Tianji was implying. Only a bunch of idiots like you would treat a sword cultivator of unknown origins like him. He laughed louder and louder. Do you really believe that he will always side with Guiyi sect? Tianji. Before Yulwan could speak, the nascent soul elder beside him could not help but scold him. You were the one who betrayed the sect with impure intentions. Don't think that others will be as filthy as you. Umph. Tianji snorted. He looked at Yi Qing with a venomous gaze. If you did not lead the wolf into the house to suppress me, I would not have become like this. You all reap what you sow, so does he. Everyone was even angrier. They were angry at his stubbornness. Yulwan, however, frowned and stepped forward. Apart from attacking the sect, what else did you do? Tianji suddenly laughed sinisterly. He said smugly, I dared to come here because I was fully prepared. Of course you've won, haven't you? No. This is just the beginning. Loneman's expression darkened. He scanned the surroundings and then reacted. Shui is not here. Everyone was shocked. They did not notice earlier. Now that they thought about it, Tianji treated that disciple so well, he would not have not brought her with him. Unless he had other motives. Have you finally realized? Tianji laughed even more happily. There was a hint of madness in his eyes. None of you can escape. All of you must die. Loneman's heart sank. Zwishumming. He exchanged a look with Yi Qing. Both of them flashed at the same time and flew towards Nameless Peak. Chapter 687. Yi Qing and Lone Moon flew very fast. They arrived at Nameless Peak in the blink of an eye. Before he landed on the ground, he heard a loud bang and the whole floating peak shook for a while. A fine white light rose up, faintly bringing with it some scattered sword chi that had exploded. It's a sword array. Lone Moon was shocked. Only then did he remember that when they came out, 2 bucks was in the sword array. The two of them took a closer look. Indeed, the 10-level sword array that Lone Moon had set up back then had already been destroyed by someone. The powerful impact had caused more than half of the entire floating peak to collapse, and the sword chi within the array was flowing everywhere. And at the bottom of the peak, clouds of black demonic chi faintly appeared. In the middle was a figure covered in blood, holding on with his sword. It looked like the surrounding demonic chi was going to swallow him in the next moment. It was 2 bucks swa. Lone Moon was shocked. He could not care less about hiding his cultivation. The fan in his hand turned into a sword. With a wave of his hand, he split the demonic chi around him, turned into spirit chi to entangle the person below, and directly pulled him out of the clouds of demonic chi. I Ching's movements were also very fast. Almost at the same time Lone Moon made his move, he activated the true phoenix fire, along with his sword chi. It burned towards the demonic chi below. The demonic chi was instantly forced back by the flames, shrinking back, slowly revealing Shu Yi's figure behind. "Hey, are you still alive?" Lone Moon patted Tu Buck's Swa, who was already covered in blood, and directly sent a bit of immortal chi over, activating Scoop's scale in his body. In a short while, the immortal chi automatically began to circulate throughout his body. Tu Buck's Swa's injuries also began to heal at a speed visible to the naked eye. His eyes then slowly focused, looking at the person in front of him. "Brother. Lone Moon?" Lone Moon then heaved a sigh of relief. Luckily they arrived in time. Uncle Master I Ching. Yulwan and the rest of the elders rushed over as well. Taking a look at the tragic scene, they lifted their heads to look at Shu Yi and were instantly stunned, not daring to recognize him. So, Shu Yi. She was no longer as sensible and well-behaved as she used to be. Perhaps it was because of the influence of the devil chi, but her face was covered with hideous devil scars. From time to time, devil chi would seep out from her body. She no longer looked like a cultivator, but had completely turned into a half-devil, looking extremely terrifying. Even if one were to look at it from afar, they would feel a chill crawling into their hearts. "You again." Shu Yi raised her head and glared at I Ching. She seemed to be angry that she did not manage to kill Zhuo Shuming in one go, but when she thought of the deviant fire just now, she started to feel wary. Ding. Warning, hunt failed. Original owner's resentment has reached 95. The mission will fail if it reaches 100. The familiar system announcement sounded again. Shut up. I know. Shu Yi was flustered and exasperated. If not for Zhuo Shuming hiding in that sword array, I wouldn't have wasted so much time. He would have died long ago. What should I do now, host? The 001 system started to panic. Why don't we give up on the mission? The original owner's resentment level is too high, killing Zhuo Shuming would not lower it. No? Shu Yi rejected it without hesitation. Let's not care about the mission first. I've wasted so many years here. I won't rest until I kill him. But host, say no more. Although I can't do anything about the original owner's resentment level, it's not impossible to kill him. Shu Yi's expression darkened. She suppressed the anger in her heart and calmed down. Yulwan stepped forward and said, Shu Yi, you betrayed your sect and were unfilial. You didn't even let your own father off. You even colluded with fiendish cultivators to attack my Guiyi sect. It's really infuriating. Now that Tianji has been taken down by Uncle Master I Ching, you're alone and without help. Hurry up and surrender. You want to capture me? Shu Yi laughed coldly. She did not look the least bit flustered. Demonic chi surged around her. That depends on whether you have the ability. With that said, she suddenly struck the ground with her palm. Demonic chi surged out of her body and into the ground. In an instant, the entire nameless peak shook again. The ground cracked and black demonic chi flowed through the cracks towards the group. Quick, fly on your swords. Lone Moon reminded them. He picked up 2 bucks and flew up. These were mortals after all. They could not come into direct contact with the demonic chi. The elders hesitated and then understood. One by one, they summoned their Dharma artifacts and were about to fly up. Suddenly, black chi flashed under their feet. A black array suddenly appeared. They felt the spirit chi in their bodies disappear. It was as if they had been sucked dry. They did not fly up. Instead, they fell to the ground. It was obvious that Shu Yi had set up a binding array on the ground in advance. It looked like everyone's spirit chi was going to be sucked dry by the array. Even their cultivation levels were starting to become unstable. I Ching frowned. He turned the sword in his hand and a huge wave of sword chi flew towards the ground. It landed on the array with a loud rumble. In an instant, the array formed by the demonic chi was broken. Everyone felt their bodies relax. Idiot. On the other side, Shu Yi suddenly sneered. She didn't care whether I Ching had broken her array or not. She took the opportunity to turn around and fly toward the peak of the mountain. Everyone then realized that she was only trying to divert their attention. They immediately chased after her. She did not take the opportunity to escape from Guiyi sect. Instead, she flew all the way to the peak and rushed into the courtyard. She grabbed a certain someone by the table and strangled his neck. She warned sternly, "Don't come over. Otherwise I'll kill her." Zhuo Shuming panicked. He did not even care about his injuries. he said angrily and anxiously, "What are you trying to do? Let go of Miss Shen." "Let go?" Shui snorted. "Do you think I'm stupid? Would I let go of such a bargaining chip so easily?" "Shui." Zhusheng took 2 steps forward and said anxiously, "I don't know why you suddenly want to kill me. But Miss Shen is just an ordinary person. Our feud has nothing to do with her." "Shui," Yuan said in a low voice. "Don't make the same mistake again. Why implicate an innocent person?" "Innocent person?" Shu Yi's expression darkened. She laughed coldly. "If she's just an ordinary person, you won't be so nervous. Don't think I don't know who she is. She's that sword cultivator's master. You want to save her?" "Sure." She narrowed her eyes and looked at Zhusheng maliciously. "If you guys kill her now, I might consider it." Everyone looked at each other and turned to look at Zhusheng. Zhusheng was also stunned. Shui smiled even more smugly. She looked at Chef and said, "Supremacy Yiqing, you have to think this through. You have the deviant fire and are not afraid of demonic qi. She might not be. As long as you help me kill Zhusheng and destroy Guiyi sect, I promise I won't touch a hair on your master." Yiqing, Lone Moon, MDZ. Xining, who was still being strangled, looked at the tense atmosphere around her. She slowly continued to take a bite of her fruit. Speaking of which, should she continue to cooperate? After all, this person looked very happy. Chapter 688. Uncle Master Yiqing. Seeing that Shu Yi was trying to sow discord, Yuan reminded anxiously, "Don't listen to her nonsense, she's doing this on purpose to stir up a fight in the sect. Don't fall for her tricks." "So what if she's doing it on purpose?" Shu Yi laughed coldly as if he was not afraid of them knowing. With a turn of his hand, a sharp black blade appeared and held it against Shen Ying's neck. "Do you really want to watch her die in my hands?" With that said, the blade in his hand moved closer to Shen Ying's neck. "Stop." Buck's face paled, he said hurriedly, "Don't hurt Miss Shen, don't you want to kill me? Just do it, why implicate the innocent?" Yuan looked at him in surprise, but Bucks stepped forward and continued, "Let me exchange with Miss Shen, I will definitely not resist." Disciple nephew Zhua. Not only Yuan, the other nascent soul-perfected ones could not help but speak up, their expressions conflicted. "What I want is not just your life alone." Shu Yi ignored his suggestion, her cold gaze swept across the crowd, her expression becoming increasingly sinister. "What I want is the life of everyone in Guiyi sect." "You?" Yuan's expression changed, but he could not think of a way to save her. He could only ask the person beside him, "Uncle Master Yiqing?" That was his master after all. When they turned to look, they realized that compared to how anxious they were, Yiqing and Lone Moon seemed a little too calm. Perhaps they were hiding it too well, there was not a hint of nervousness on their faces. He was just about to speak when Shui could not wait any longer. She threatened again, "If you don't do it, I'll kill her immediately." Hee. Lone Moon then replied calmly, "There's no need to wait, go ahead and kill her." "Try killing her?" Zhusheng, Yuan, everyone, what happened to their good relationship? This was different from what they imagined. Even Shui was stunned. After a while, she became even more furious, glaring at the two of them. "Do you think I don't dare?" Once he finished speaking, he tightened his grip on the knife in his hand. The sharp black blade instantly pressed into Shen Ying's neck. It looked like it was about to draw blood. Zhusheng, "No." Everyone, "No." Everyone's faces turned even paler as they cried out in alarm. Xining stopped chewing on her fruit. She looked at the sharp blade in front of her and rolled her eyes. Yes, it was necessary to cooperate with such a tense atmosphere. Thus, he opened his mouth and said one word at a time emotionlessly, as if he was reciting from a book. "Ah, it's so scary, help." The corner of Loman's mouth twitched. The spirit chi he was about to release dissipated completely. "Ayaya, Father Nyo, I'm so scared. Prepare a ransom of tens of millions to save me." Lone Moon. F** King Retard. Yiqing. Should he help or not? This question is so difficult, I don't know how to answer it. Father Nyo, shut up. Do you think I'm blind? The blade on your neck is already bent, okay? Can't you be a little more sincere when you're asking for help? Can't you be a little more nervous and emotional? Do you think I'm chanting? Also, don't even think about increasing your allowance. This. Yuan looked back and forth at the few of them. He felt that something was wrong. Fellow Taoist Lone Moon Yiqing, Sect Master. Lone Moon frowned. He took a step forward and said, I think you should return to the sect and look after Tianji. There are many fiendish cultivators there in case anything happens. Yu Wan was stunned. He glanced at Shu Yi and then at Yi Qing, who had been silent all this while. But this. Was he just going to ignore it? Don't worry, it's fine. After all. He looked up at the sky and deliberately raised his voice. It's going to be lunchtime soon. Lunch. Shining, who was addicted to acting, was indeed stunned. Her expression turned serious. She changed her emotionless tone and called out seriously, "Chef." "Yes, master." Yi Qing nodded. Without the slightest scruple about the situation in front of him, he turned around and plunged into the kitchen without hesitation. In the blink of an eye, there was the sound of chopping vegetables. Shining did not forget to turn around and add another sentence. "Make a fish for lunch. I want it braised." "Yes, master, no problem, master." Zhushiming, Shu Yi, everyone. What was going on? Weren't they going to rescue the hostages first? Why did they suddenly start cooking? Are you guys messing with me? Shu Yi was so angry that her face began to contort. Demonic chi surged out of her body again. She directly grabbed at Zhushiming's direction. Instantly, a wave of demonic chi attacked him. It looked like it was going to entangle him. Lonman's expression darkened. He activated a bit of god power and waved his sword. Instantly, a wave of sword chi directly slashed towards the demonic chi. With a swoosh, that black demonic chi instantly disappeared completely. The remaining force of the sword chi even counterattacked the other party. Shui was caught off guard and was injured by the huge sword chi. She grabbed Shining and retreated a few steps before she could barely stand. She looked at Lone Moon in disbelief. "You're also at the soul formation stage." Lone Moon frowned. He could not be bothered to pretend anymore. He directly activated his cultivation to the soul formation stage. In an instant, the suppressive force of a soul formation cultivator pressed down on the other party. Zhushiming and Yu Wan's companions were stunned. They all turned to look at Lone Moon. Brother Lone Moon." Zhushiming was stunned. After a while he reacted. No wonder whether it was Qi Refinement Foundation establishment or even after he formed his core. Every time he practiced with the sword, he could not last more than 2 moves against him. So he was a soul formation supremacy from the start. Yu Wan also reacted. No wonder Uncle Master Tian Yi was so interested in a foundation establishment disciple. Could it be that he already knew Lonman's identity? "You've actually been hiding your cultivation all along. Despicable indeed." Shu Yi glared at Lone Moon. Her gaze was full of hatred. So he had been hiding by Zhushiming's side all along. No wonder her plans always failed. The more she thought about it, the more hatred she felt. As if she thought of something, a red light flashed in her eyes. The demonic chi on her body became thicker. She glanced at Shining, who was chewing on her fruit again. She laughed mockingly. "Indeed, you're just a mortal. You're useless. But even if Yi Qing doesn't make a move, I can still destroy your Guiyi sect." Yu Wan could hear the meaning in her words. His heart tightened. "What do you mean?" Shui smiled even more happily. "Do you think I've done nothing apart from allying with the demon sect all these years in Heavenly Fiend sect?" Zhushiming paled. "What else do you want to do?" The demonic chi on Shu Yi's body suddenly started to increase. Her entire body was enveloped by demonic chi. Even the sky darkened. In an instant, the wind blew and the clouds moved. The ground shook. The spirit herbs on the originally lush ground withered at a speed visible to the naked eye. In an instant, the entire mountain turned yellow. There seemed to be a huge object breaking out of the ground. It brought with it a refreshing chill. It twisted like a living thing. "This is a spirit meridian?" Yu Wan looked at the black object in disbelief. But it was clearly demonic chi. Could it be demonic source? Lone Moon blurted out. Immortal cultivators had spirit meridians. Fiendish cultivators naturally had demonic sources. Everyone gasped. They suddenly recalled the array that Shu Yi had set up at the foot of the mountain. It looked like a binding array. But the demonic chi was obviously directed towards the ground. So she did not set up the array casually. She took the opportunity to convert the spirit meridian in the mountain into a demonic source. Then she purposely came to the mountain peak to hold Miss Shin hostage. Could it be that she was trying to buy time so that she could convert the demonic source? Shu Yi's eyes turned cold. She said word by word, "I want all of you to die." Chapter 689. As soon as Shu Yi's voice fell, the surrounding devil chi became even more turbulent and spread out layer by layer. In an instant, the surroundings became dark. Not good, the devil chi is about to enter the other peaks. A nascent soul elder cried out in alarm. He pointed at the surrounding devil chi and said anxiously. Everyone's expression changed as they realized that the demonic chi around them was getting thicker and thicker. It looked like the demonic chi was about to seep out of the nameless peak and head towards the other peaks. They were able to stand in the demonic chi because of Lone Moon's array formation. If the demonic chi were to spread, the disciples of the sect would probably supremacy. Lone Moon? Yulwan could only look towards Lone Moon for help. Don't leave the formation. At the same time he conjured a seal with both hands. In an instant, a white array appeared around Nameless Mountain, sealing the demonic chi within the mountain tightly. Before everyone could heave a sigh of relief, Shu Yi sneered. Unnecessary. She did not seem to care about the obstruction at all and directly called out to the system in her mind. 001, hurry up and fix the heavenly demon formation now. Host, do you really want to complete this array now? Nonsense. Shu Yi snorted coldly. If you don't summon the demons, how are you going to kill Zhuoshumming and this group of people from Guiyi sect? Didn't I go to the heavenly demon sect to get this magic tool? But, directly connecting to the demon realm is forbidden by the rules. It will be discovered by the heavenly law of this world. Don't you have a way to temporarily block the detection of the heavenly Tao? She still stubbornly said, let it not find out first. By the time it finds out, we will have already left this world. Host, this function can only be used for a short period of time, and all your points will be cleared. Fine. Shu Yi gritted her teeth and urged, no matter what, I must kill them today. Ding. Repair complete. Shu Yi then took out an item and tossed it into the air. In the next moment, a huge array suddenly appeared above them. It shone with a strange red light, as if something was about to break out of the array. What is this? Yulwan's eyes widened. It was an array that he had never seen before. However, there was a sinister aura that made people feel uncomfortable. Just a glance at it was enough to cause his mind to become unsteady and his blood to surge. Lone Moon took a closer look at the array and his eyes flashed with shock. It really was a heavenly demon formation. There was actually someone in the lower realm who knew how to set up this formation. Wasn't this something that only demons with sky demon cultivation could set up? Wasn't this? He took a closer look and found that there seemed to be something extra in the formation. It was not an ordinary heavenly demon formation. You think you can really seal my demonic chi? Shu. Shu Yi looked at everyone with a confident expression. Her eyes, which were originally filled with murderous intent, became even colder. She laughed loudly and said, I'm not the only one you have to deal with. What do you mean by that? Yulwan's heart sank. He was even more wary of the formation in the sky. Shu Yi sneered, do you know why the heavenly demon sect is called this? That's because they've produced devils who have truly ascended to immortality. This formation is the most precious treasure of the heavenly devil sect that has been lost for a long time. It can connect directly to the devil world and summon the ancient devils to the world. What? Everyone's faces paled. Summoning the ancient devil race? Was Shu Yi crazy? This would destroy the entire mortal world. Shu Yi smiled even more proudly and said word by word, none of you can escape. The moment she finished, the array in the sky shone with a blinding red light. Countless talismans started to move, as if they were going to come to life in the next second. Indeed, after a while there was a loud bang. A huge black stone door appeared above the red array. The heavy black color seemed to be devouring all the light around it. This is... Zhuoshumming's eyes widened in disbelief. He had only taken one look at the huge door that had suddenly appeared in midair. For a moment he felt a chill spreading throughout his body. All the meridians in his body seemed to be freezing inch by inch. His cultivation was unstable and even his golden core looked like it was about to shatter. What are you looking at? Lone Moon reached out and grabbed Zhuoshumming. He threw him into the array. He conjured a seal with one hand and added a few more layers of protection to block the suppressive force outside. Supremacy Lone Moon, what is that? Yulwan and the others were shocked. Lone Moon's expression darkened. Then he replied, demonic sect. But why did they appear here? Before everyone could be shocked, they heard a creak. The door suddenly opened. At the same time, demonic chi that was 100 times thicker than Shu Yi surged out. The suppressive force covered the sky. It was as if the entire mountain top was going to be crushed. After so many years, there's still someone who can summon me? A cold male voice sounded. A figure appeared in front of the demon door. He was dressed in a black robe. Demonic chi surrounded him. There was also a thick smell of blood. Everyone felt a chill in their hearts. They immediately understood that this was a real devil. Lone Moon also frowned. A sky fiend actually appeared. The sky demon raised his hand, and the Dharma artifact that Shui had just thrown out flew into his palm. He looked down and seemed to confirm something. It's indeed the sky fiend seal that I left behind. I didn't think that a cultivator from the lower realm could summon this seal. A hint of joy flashed in his eyes, but his gaze was still cold. He looked down and said, "Who was the one who repaired this sky fiend seal? I can promise her one thing. It's me." Shu Yi's face lit up. The ancient books of the Sky Fiend sect were right. This array could allow the Sky Fiend to descend. She did not expect that there would be a surprise. He could promise her one thing. So she answered loudly without thinking. "Supremacy, I was the one who repaired this array. Please help me get rid of Guiyi sect." "Oh." The Sky Fiend's eyes darkened. He turned to look in Shu Yi's direction. In a flash, he landed in front of the demon door and walked toward her. With every step he took, the demonic chi on his body increased. The demonic chi on Shu Yi's body retreated a little. It was as if she was threatened. The Sky Fiend's eyes lit up. As he walked, he said, "You want me to kill these mortals?" "Yes." Shu Yi nodded heavily. Her body, which was originally shrouded in demonic chi, was slowly revealed. The Sky Fiend laughed softly. His eyes were full of murderous intent. "Good. Then this noble one will do as you say." He suddenly paused halfway through his words. His eyes, which were originally filled with mischief, suddenly widened to the size of copper bells, as if he had seen something shocking. He stared straight at Shu Yi's direction, and the words that were about to come out of his mouth suddenly turned into a string of sounds. So. After a long while, he still couldn't say the last word. His entire body even began to tremble like a sieve. Supremacy? Shu Yi was stunned. In the next moment, the Sky Fiend shook violently as if he had been awakened. Then his legs turned to jelly. Without hesitation, he knelt down in front of Shu Yi, who was grabbing Shining. There was a loud thud. The entire demon city was almost pressed against the ground. It was a perfect demonstration of what it meant to be prostrated on all fours. This little demon greets exalted. Exalted goddess. Shu Yi, Shining, everyone, what the hell? For all? Chapter 690. Who are you? Shining took a bite of her fruit and had no choice but to answer. Exalted goddess, I'm Little San. The Sky Fiend looked up and pointed to his face. The Little San in King Little Black's house? What Little San? Did you Hong know? The Sky Fiend added, Sky Fiend number 3 Little San, is that the name that Exalted Goddess gave me? Lone Moon, Shining, you should have said you were one of the 10 Sky Fiends. Lone Moon turned and glared at a certain someone. Who asked you to give me random nicknames? Exalted Goddess? Shui had a bad feeling about this. He could not help but look at the obedient Sky Fiend with some panic. Didn't you promise to help me destroy the entire Guiyi sect? Don't talk nonsense. The Sky Fiend knelt down as if he was about to explode. He was going to die. What nonsense was he spouting in front of the Exalted Goddess? What entire sect? Who wants to destroy what entire sect? Don't frame a demon. I'm a good demon. Ever since the immortal and demon realms merged, I've been responding to the Exalted Goddess's call. We've been harmonious, friendly, civilized, helping each other. I haven't done anything bad. I even went to the invincible heavenly palace yesterday and followed my king to escort immortal pills to various continents. I've been on duty once a month. I haven't slacked off at all. But? Shui looked confused. He blurted out, it's the Sky Fiend seal that I restored. What's wrong with that? Who told you to do it? The Sky Fiend did not dare to admit it. He hurriedly explained, we didn't give you immortal stones. You did it out of boredom. It's my fault. I'm not even close to you. Don't try to scam me, I'm telling you. You. Shui was completely stunned. Was this really a Sky Fiend? The Little San kowtowed to Shining once more. He said word by word, Exalted Goddess. Exalted Goddess, believe me. I may look evil, but I'm innocent. He thought for a moment and added, it's all the fault of the other Sky Fiends from the Demon Palace. The demon sect suddenly appeared. They cheated and caused me to lose. That's why they pushed me down. I really didn't want this. He cried louder and louder. The louder he got, the more aggrieved he felt. He was just short of tears and snot. Exalted goddess, this really has nothing to do with me. Back when the immortal and demonic realms merged into one, we have thoroughly investigated all the remaining demonic sects in the world and recovered all of them. Because this heavenly demon seal was damaged, it could not be touched at all, and no one in the lower realm could repair it. It was Demon King Little Black who said that there was no need to care about this, so he didn't go down to the lower realm to retrieve it. In the end, Exalted Goddess Little Black Demon King made me do it. He was an innocent demon. Xin, Lone Moon, everyone, if this demon was afraid, would it even betray its superior? On the other side, a series of electronic voice transmissions sounded in Shu Yi's ears, as if it was the final verdict. Ding. Original owner's resentment plus 5. Ding. The resentment value had reached 100. Mission failed. Ding. The heavenly axiom has detected this and is preparing to forcibly break away from this world. Host, please be prepared. 10-9-8. A strong sense of indignation flashed across Shu Yi's eyes. There was no time to sort out the current situation. She could only glare at Wuxia, full of murderous intent. In the next moment she felt her vision go black and she lost consciousness. And in the eyes of Lone Moon and the others, they saw a flash of green characters that looked like codes on Shu Yi's soul. The invader's black primary soul that was stuck in Shu Yi's body like a sandwich was forcibly extracted from her soul and then flew towards the demonic gate in the sky. Shu Yi's body fell to the ground without warning, but the original primary soul in her body did not return. Seeing that the system was about to escape, Lone Moon hurriedly called out to remind Chef. I Ching, who was originally still in the kitchen, instantly appeared in the sky above the demonic gate. With a wave of his hand, the demonic gate closed directly, disappearing along with the passageway that connected to the demonic realm. Then he summoned a sword array to trap the object that seemed to be made up of codes. As if knowing that it could no longer enter the demonic gate, the system suddenly glowed with green light. Nobody knew what it did, but it actually penetrated through Chef's sword array and rushed towards the ground. Lone Moon was shocked and immediately reacted. It wants to enter the river of forgetfulness. He turned to stop it, but Xin, who was originally still opposite him, suddenly reached out and pulled him. What? Lone Moon panicked. Wait. Xin replied, not at all anxious. Anyway, she continued to leisurely take a bite of her fruit. Wait for what? It wants to escape through the river of forgetfulness. The system wanted to enter the demonic gate and return to the immortal realm through it. It did not know that the gap had been sealed, so it wanted to escape through the original path outside the invincible heavenly palace. Chef sealed the demonic gate, so it wanted to directly punch a hole through the river of forgetfulness in the lower realm. Shit. It's already in. The moment Lone Moon stopped, the system had already rushed underground, straight into the river of forgetfulness. Lone Moon's heart tightened. It wants to escape. He paused mid-sentence, only to realize that the system that had rushed into the river of forgetfulness, which was originally covered in green light, suddenly dimmed under the golden power of the original source. The entire green ball of light began to tremble as if it was about to collapse. It looked like it was about to disintegrate. In the center of the green light, a wisp of white soul floated out slowly. One could vaguely make out the shadow of Shu Yi. This was the original soul of the original owner of the body that was extracted by the system, the real Shu Yi. It was finally separated. The invader did not complete the original source of her heart, so she naturally did not want to leave with the system. In addition, under the scouring of the original source of the river of forgetfulness, the system naturally could not lock this wisp of soul. This all happened very quickly. In the blink of an eye, the original owner's soul had already returned to the river of forgetfulness. But the system did not stop. After spitting out the original soul, it forcefully tore a plain opening from the river of forgetfulness with the black soul of the invader. It's done. Xin threw the fruit in her hand, her figure flashed, and then she jumped towards the river of forgetfulness. Lone Moon looked up at Chef in the air and hurriedly followed. In a flash, the three of them disappeared on the spot. The people who could not see the system at all and could not see the river of forgetfulness as well as a certain demon. What was going on? What exactly happened just now? Why did Shu Yi suddenly stop breathing and collapse? Moreover, how did those three people disappear? Everyone could only turn to look at Wuxia, the only person who was usually close to them. I don't know either. Wuxia looked confused. Were all soul formation supremacies so mysterious? Everyone looked at each other in dismay. Then, they saw a certain demon kneeling obediently on the ground with a pure and kind look on his face. Speaking of which, this was definitely a fake sky fiend, right? For some reason, Yulwan's originally full of fear had now disappeared completely. He mustered up his courage and could not help but say, this? Fellow Taoist, I don't know when the three supremacies will return, why don't you follow me to the main hall for a cup of tea? After all, he did not seem to have the intention to fight. Peace was the most important. No. Little Three hurriedly shook his head like a rattled drum and said with a determined expression, Exalted Goddess hasn't told me to get up yet? How can I get up by myself? I'm a sensible demon, don't you think of lying to me? The corner of Yulwan's mouth twitched, so he changed his words. Why don't I send you the tea? You can kneel and drink it, right? All right. Little Three then nodded. Remember to put more tea leaves. Refreshing. He could kneel for another 500 years. Yulwan, Zwishuming, everyone, MBC. Chapter 691. The moment Xin Ying and company entered the River of Forgetfulness, they saw that a white crack had appeared around the system in front of them. It looked like it was about to tear the plane apart. Chef's heart stirred. Immediately, the power of the original source in the surroundings gathered towards the system, blocking its path. I Ching waved his hand. Huge amounts of nomological power surged towards the system, wrapping around it. It grew tighter and tighter. It looked like it was about to be controlled. The green coat around the system started to twist. Even its light dimmed. It seemed to be unstable. A much weaker electronic voice rang out again. Beep beep. Special situation. Identity exposed. Attacked by Heavenly Tao. Attacked. Beep beep. Activating final self-protection level. Devouring backup energy. Activating devouring charging. Ah. A scream rang out from the system. The black primary soul that was originally wrapped up by the system's green light started to struggle violently. 001, what are you doing? It hurts. Let go of me. Let go. Before Shu Yi could finish his sentence, the entire black soul body had already disappeared. Meanwhile, the system emitted an even brighter green light than before, as though it had mobilized all of its energy. In an instant, it broke through the suppression of the power of the natural order, and with a kacha sound, it opened up a gap above the River of Forgetfulness and drilled out. Chef, what are you doing? Lone Moon turned to look at I Ching in shock. You can't even stop this? I Ching frowned. He did not reply. Instead, he turned to look at Xin Ying, confused. Master, why did you? Although the system had devoured a different soul and its power had increased by 10 times, it was indeed nothing in front of him. Xin Ying had suddenly pulled him back. Xin Ying responded. Without explaining, she took out a familiar-looking blue box and patted it. It was the parenting system from before. Hey, stop playing landlord for a while. Point me the way. All right, big boss. The blue box flew up. The parenting system, which had been displaying a row of poker cards, retracted its cards. The little box turned back into a pair of familiar cartoon eyes. Signal source confirmed. The target is escaping to the chaotic region of SBSBSB 155. 23. Xin Ying then grabbed the parenting system back in her hands. She waved her hand and opened the plane gate. Turning back to look at the two, she said, Let's go. We're going to its nest. The two of them. They looked at each other. Winky face. Only then did he remember that 001 seemed to be just a subsystem. He didn't know what was behind it. Was Xin Ying planning to catch them all at once? But since when did the parenting system become so powerful? Even after 001 escaped from the realm, it was still able to track him down. It was completely different from the previous system that would freeze every time it tried to attack. Xin Ying, however, had already turned and walked into the plane passage. The two of them exchanged a look and turned to repair the hole in the River of Forgetfulness before following her. Almost in the blink of an eye, their vision turned black and they immediately entered a space of nothingness. There was nothing around them, even the ground under their feet had disappeared. This is chaos? Lone Moon was stunned. This was the first time he had come to the legendary chaos space. In the past, even when he left his own plane, he only traveled between planes. The chaos was a primordial region outside of all the planes. It was boundless and no one knew how big it was. There was nothing in it. It didn't even have the concept of time and space. It was a completely different place from the void. Lone Moon subconsciously looked at his own palms. Was he imagining things? Logically speaking, their powers came from their own plane. Why did it feel like they were stronger now that they were in the chaos space? Before he could think about it, the parenting system suddenly flashed and gave a warning. Reporting Big Boss. There are traces of intruders 500 meters ahead. They focused and indeed there was a flash of white light not far away. A familiar green ball of system rushed out of the white light. It seemed to have just broken through the plane and arrived. They didn't expect it to be one step slower than them. I Ching's eyes and hands were sharp. He immediately conjured a seal to hide the figures of the three of them. As soon as the system came out, it flew to the right. The three of them exchanged a look and quietly followed it. The parenting system flew in front of them, very obsequiously guiding them. The bad system ahead has turned right 200 meters away. The bad system ahead has hit a chaos flowstone 300 meters away. Please take care to avoid it. The bad system ahead has increased its speed. Lone Moon, I Ching, Shining? Lone Moon couldn't help but send a voice transmission. Since when did this parenting system have a navigation function? Did you intend to let 001 out of the plane right from the start? No wonder she wasn't anxious at all. That's right. Shining nodded as she dug out the fruit. Once and for all. Otherwise it will think that we're in a rabbit's nest. It dug holes everywhere. She might as well get rid of it all at once. Then this. Lone Moon wanted to ask in detail. It's gone. I Ching suddenly stopped and looked in front of him, a little confused. Lone Moon paused and looked up. Indeed, the 001 system that was flying in front of them just now had disappeared. There was only darkness around them. What's going on? Why did it suddenly disappear? They were following closely. They were less than 500 meters away. They shouldn't have lost it. I don't know either. It suddenly disappeared. Chef shook his head. Even the parenting system let out a series of anxious noises. Big Boss, the target has disappeared. The target has disappeared. It didn't disappear. Shining replied. She frowned and took a step forward. She raised her right hand and touched something in front of her. It was as if she touched something. The originally black space suddenly rippled like the surface of a lake with a stone thrown into it. The scenery in front of him changed, and in an instant, it changed into another scene. The two of them stared at it and couldn't help but suck in a cold breath. What was this? They saw that behind the ripples, there was a huge object floating in the air. Its entire body was covered in green fluorescent light. There were characters that looked like codes all over its body. Countless long and thin tentacles extended from its body. They extended in all directions. Every tentacle was wriggling. They could faintly see balls of different colored souls gathering in the center through those tentacles. That thing was huge. They couldn't see its exact size. They couldn't tell what it was. It looked like a plane tree, but it didn't have the aura of an original source. From time to time, one or two systems like 001 would stop at the end of those complicated tentacles. They would put the primary souls that they captured into the tentacles and then leave. There were many of those systems. They were like busy worker bees. And this was the hive. Chapter 692. Reporting Big Boss. Target main system discovered. Lone Moon took a closer look at the huge object in front of him. He could faintly sense that the other party's energy was no weaker than that of a manager's. It was just that it was very messy, not as pure as a manager's. It seemed to be a patchwork of energy, and the strongest energy was at the very center of the nest. There are so many subsystems, what do we do now? Lone Moon suggested subconsciously. Should we find an entrance and sneak in? This main system would have some sort of switch, right? Why sneak in? Shining tilted her head and asked seriously. Nonsense, what do we do if we don't sneak in? The core of the main system was clearly in the innermost part of this thing. Can't we just kill it? Lone Moon was stunned. Before he could react, he saw Xin Ying's figure flash, instantly appearing beside one of the system's tentacles. She reached out and grabbed that thick tentacle. Wait, what are you doing? Holy shit, you really did it? In an instant, the countless subsystems that were originally busy suddenly stopped in unison, as if someone had pressed the pause button. With a whoosh, they all aimed at him. The originally green subsystems all turned red with a whoosh, as if countless pairs of densely packed red eyes had opened. Indeed, in the next moment there was a series of beeping alarms. Shining. Lone Moon felt a chill in his heart. Just as he was about to pull her back, he saw her grab the tentacle with one hand and pull hard. There was a loud crack and a blinding flash of light. That huge tentacle was forcibly pulled down by her. The entire huge main system began to writhe, waving countless other tentacles and attacking them. Even the subsystems that were like worker bees also gathered in this direction, densely packed and overwhelming. Shining, however, still looked half dead and half alive. She directly grabbed the tentacle in her hand, like a whip, turned around and waved her hand at the impenetrable subsystem. A series of rumbling explosions could be heard. There was a burst of colorful light in front of them. Large patches of tentacles and subsystems exploded, scattering in all directions. But the tentacle whip in Xin Ying's hand did not stop. Instead, it followed the momentum and directly swung towards the main body of the main system behind her. Then there was a loud bang. The gigantic object, which could not be seen clearly at first glance, was instantly pushed back. Then, with a few cracking sounds, a huge crack appeared on the body of the main system. The crack ran through the entire sphere from top to bottom, and a large number of foreign incomplete souls that had not yet turned into origin swarmed out from within and fled in all directions. He could even faintly see the shining core in the innermost area. "All right, there's no need to hide anymore," Shining said. "Lone Moon, I Ching, of *CK. What kind of violent cheat was this?" Sure enough, in front of a cheat, all villains were paper tigers. Xin Ying's actions seemed to have broken something. The entire main system began to tremble and emit a series of strange electronic sounds. Even the countless subsystems began to flee in all directions. Lone Moon's heart sank. Only then did he react. He turned to I Ching and said, "Chef, stop these systems. They must not be allowed to invade other planes, otherwise there would be endless trouble." I Ching also reacted immediately. In a flash, he retreated to the side. In the next moment, a fiery wall of fire appeared in an instant, heading in the direction of the escaping subsystems. There was a series of crackling sounds, and all the systems that crashed into the wall of fire were turned into ashes. The wall of fire grew taller and taller. In a moment, it had become a sea of fire. Because this area was really too wide in order to block off all the exits, even Chef had no choice but to transform into his original phoenix form, turning into a huge fire phoenix, controlling the true phoenix fire to form circles of fire walls, wrapping up the entire main system and the surroundings. Lone Moon also conjured an immortal sword. He waved his sword and tens of them began to destroy the countless subsystems inside. Shining, on the other hand, did not move. She looked up at the crack on the main system, and then looked at the chaotic mess of subsystems flying everywhere. Her eyes narrowed and she pointed at the parenting system that was still floating beside her. "Baby system." "Yes, boss, please instruct me." "Scan the energy levels of all the system terminals here." "Yes, boss." "No problem, boss." "Scanning terminal. Discovered terminal plus 5 billion, energy level is B. Detected abnormal energy. The energy level is over SSS. Reporting to boss, there's a problem. Mark it out." "Yes, boss." The parenting system made a beeping sound. A thin white line suddenly shot out from the blue square, pointing to a dark area in front of them on the right. There was a small green ball that looked similar to the other subsystems. In the next moment, a red arrow appeared on top of the system's head. Lone Moon, who was dealing with the system worker bees, immediately noticed the situation over there. He paused. "What's this?" "The main body," Shining replied. "The main systems." "What?" Lone Moon was stunned. He looked at the huge body in the middle and then at the marked system. Suddenly he understood. "It can move into these subsystems at will." Shining nodded. "Holy shit." He cursed and spun the sword in his hand. Then he turned around and flew towards the marked system. The system did not have a physical body. It could only be bound to a soul. He should have known that the so-called main system did not have a physical body. That was why it could move between any of the subsystems. No wonder Xin Ying attacked it without saying a word. If they had really sneaked in, it might have moved before they could catch the main system. They had to get rid of all the systems from the start. So they might as well poke the hornet's nest and trap all the systems first. What's more, the main system's energy was quite shocking. It was no less than that of an ordinary manager. But after Xin Ying hit it, it seemed to have collapsed. Even the subsystems began to flee in all directions. Now that he thought about it, the main system might have done it on purpose. It knew that it could not defeat Xin Ying, so it created chaos and wanted to escape. Indeed, just as Lone Moon flew towards the marked system, the surrounding subsystems that were fleeing in all directions suddenly seemed to have received some order. They swarmed towards him, forming a green wall. It was as if they wanted to stop him from advancing. Lone Moon summoned his sword array. Thousands of immortal swords broke through the system's green wall. His body flashed towards the main system and he slashed at the marked system. But before he could heave a sigh of relief, more subsystems appeared around him. Ding. The target has changed again. The parenting system's mark dimmed. It instantly appeared on top of another green ball a few feet away. It changed again. Good job, parenting system. Lone Moon was overjoyed. He had the urge to give it his salary. He turned and flew towards it. Chapter 693. With the parenting system's godly assistance, no matter how the main system moved, there would always be a mark above its head. What's more, Chef's wall of fire was getting tighter and tighter, and Lone Moon had set up several sword arrays inside. The hundreds of millions of subsystems around them were getting fewer and fewer. There were only a few left. The main system seemed to have sensed this. The mark above its head dimmed and disappeared. In the next moment, the huge body in the center with countless tentacles started to move again. Ding. Reporting to Big Boss, the target has returned to the initial terminal. The main system, which was as huge as a plane tree, suddenly emitted beams of piercing green light from its body. Like lasers, it swept toward the few of them. Everywhere it passed, even chaos was broken. There was even the chi of the source. It wants to use the original source it collected to attack us. Lone Moon was shocked. He turned toward Yi Qing, who was still controlling the wall of fire. Chef, quickly dodge these. No need. Shining suddenly spoke. With that, her figure flashed and she appeared right in front of those beams of light. Just as all the beams were about to hit her body, Shining raised her hand to block them. However, she merely raised her hand to block the attack. In an instant, the countless rays of green light bounced back as if they had hit a mirror. Then, with a few sizzling sounds, the smell of something burning wafted into the air. With a loud rumble, the main system, which already had a crack in it, broke into pieces. Its huge body was cut by its own green light, and countless cracks appeared as if it was cracking. We can sneak in now. Shining pointed at the biggest crack and said seriously. Lone Moon, Yi Qing, you're awesome. Fu K, is this called sneaking in? This is freaking ripping. And it's the kind of ripping in the open and extremely arrogant way. Shining, however, stepped forward and jumped into the center of the crack. Lone Moon and Yi Qing exchanged a look and hurriedly followed. The moment they entered the crack, the scenery around them changed. All the darkness retreated, and a snow-white land appeared in front of them. It was white and empty. They could faintly feel a thick source of original source energy in front of them. Sure enough, in the next moment, a figure slowly appeared in front of him, slowly condensing into a human shadow. That person was floating in the air. He was dressed in black and his eyes were cold. He looked at the three of them with an expressionless face. He did not speak, but a stiff voice rang out. Invaders from a low-level existential plane, how dare you provoke a chief god? You will pay the price of your souls. Intruder? Lone Moon looked at the person in the sky, amused. Aren't you the one who invades other planes everywhere? The person on the other side frowned as if he was very angry. That stiff voice sounded again, but he ignored Lone Moon's sarcasm. You have already entered my chief god space, no one can resist me. Sovereign space. Lone Moon was stunned. Could it be that it had intentionally lured them in? He subconsciously sensed his own plane, only to find that the plane that could be contacted at any time was now completely cut off. He was shocked, but before he could think, a series of electronic sounds rang out from the other side. Activation of original source energy successful. Preparing for soul extraction, extraction commencing. In the next moment he felt a strong gust of wind sweep past, followed by a loud crashing sound. A huge amount of energy was pressing down on them. Lone Moon's heart sank and he subconsciously tightened his grip on the sword in his hand. He felt that the energy was getting closer, closer and closer. Then it swept past them. Straight Face, Lone Moon, Chef and the parenting system floating in front of Shining were all standing where they were perfectly fine. They did not feel any pressure at all, much less that their souls were being extracted. The three of them, what a frightening soul extraction. Extraction failed. Increase energy by 70%. Extraction commencing. With a crashing sound, another wave of energy pressed down on them and then, it swept past them again. The three of them did not move. Extraction failed. Increase energy by 90%. Extraction commencing. Another wave of energy pressed down on them and then, it swept past them again and again. The three of them were as still as dead dogs. Extraction failed. Increase energy by 100%. Extraction commencing. Are you done? The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. He could not help but open his mouth to retort. Brag, brag, brag? What are you bragging about? Do you think you're an electric fan? He was wrong to think that this main system was so powerful. Yet he forgot that it was not even a manager. It was just a fake manager that stole some original source energy from different planes and then patched it up. With so much energy from so many different planes, it was already not bad that it could maintain a superficial level of compatibility. It actually wanted to extract the soul of an authentic manager. Of course that was impossible. They reckoned that this guy probably didn't even know who they were. Unknown life form detected. Impossible to estimate. Impossible to estimate. The main system made a series of crashing sounds as if the machine was stuck. Unknown life form that cannot be matched to any plane. What exactly are you? Lone Moon, I Ching, Shining, so it really did not know? Oh, it was no wonder that 001 who invaded them previously, kept saying that it was afraid of being discovered by the heavenly Tao, but never mentioned anything about managers. So it did not know at all? Then what it said about the chief god space earlier, was it just a bluff? The parenting system was right. This was indeed a low-level system. It deserved to be eliminated. Lone Moon's eyebrows furrowed. He sent a beam of sword chi over. The figure in the air shook like smoke and then dissipated. A phantom? I Ching frowned. He conjured a wind seal. Suddenly a strong gust of wind rose. It was much stronger than the 3 soul-sucking winds that the main system created earlier. In the next moment, the white fog in front of them dissipated. The surroundings darkened again. A green light appeared in front of them. Countless green codes surrounded a colorful mixed source. The source energy was very thick, almost as thick as that of an ordinary plane source. It looked like this was the core of the main system. Xinying's eyes narrowed. She walked forward directly. Wait, don't touch the core. The electronic voice sounded again. Compared to the emotionless tone before, this time there was a hint of panic. I can create a physical body soon and become a powerful eternal life form. Don't destroy my core. Physical body? Lone Moon frowned. Eternal life forms aside, this fellow dug holes in all the planes to steal the source. So it was to obtain a physical body first? He turned to look at the little cube floating beside Shining. Speaking of which, was it that difficult to have a physical body? Winky face, stop. The main system was getting more and more panicked. Shining walked closer and closer. Just as she was about to reach out and grab the source, she suddenly felt a weight on her hand. Someone grabbed her wrist. An unfamiliar male voice sounded beside her. Don't you think it's a pity to destroy such an interesting thing? Chapter 694. Master. I Ching's heart sank and he flew over directly. Lone Moon was shocked too. Who are you? The man appeared too suddenly. They actually did not notice that there was someone else here, even Shining. The man turned back to look at the two. A cold look flashed in his eyes. The friendly and teasing expression just now suddenly became unapproachable. You still have 2 burdens with you, he said with a half smile. Suddenly his eyes darkened, and something seemed to be released from his body in the direction of the 2. You're in the way. Xinying's eyes narrowed, her figure flashed, and she instantly retreated to I Ching and Lone Moon's side. The 2 of them had no time to react at all. They only felt that an invisible defense had been set up around them in an instant, and a few strange sounds whizzed past their ears. It was as if something terrifying had almost hit them, but Shining had blocked it at the last moment. The 2's expression changed instantly. This completely defenseless, completely unfelt power, this was the first time they felt this from someone other than Shining. If Shining did not return just now, perhaps the 2 of them would already be here. A sense of danger that they had never felt before immediately surged in their hearts. This man, who exactly was he? Master. I Ching's heart sank even more, subconsciously looking at Shining who was blocking in front of him. Before he had time to ask, Shining suddenly turned around, reached out and pushed his chest. Go back. I Ching was caught off guard and was pushed back by her. Along with Lone Moon they fell to the ground. Instantly, a white light flashed in front of them as if something opened instantly. It looked very familiar. This was the white light of the plane door. Master. Foodie. The 2 subconsciously exclaimed, but fell directly into the plane door that suddenly opened behind them, disappearing on the spot, only in time to see Xinying's face, a never-before-seen serious expression. In the next instant, the 2 were already sitting on the grass in the divine realm. Chef panicked, immediately climbed up, raised his hand wanting to open the plane door again, but no matter how he conjured a seal, there was no reaction at all. Lone Moon hurriedly tried as well. It was the same situation. He turned to look at Chef, who was already frantic. It's no use. Shining should have already sealed all the plane passages. We can't go back. Master. I Ching's expression turned even uglier. He thought of the man who had suddenly appeared in the attack that he could not detect at all. No. She's in danger, we have to hurry back. Chef, calm down. Lone Moon held him back. Shining didn't even inform us and sent us back so suddenly. She must have known from the start that it wasn't something we could handle. We wouldn't be able to help at all and might even implicate her. I Ching heaved a sigh of relief and calmed down. However, he looked even more flustered now. He clenched his fists tightly. But Master is alone. If we don't help her, who else can? Senior Jing. His eyes lit up and he turned to Lone Moon. Find Senior Jing. That person isn't simple. He's definitely not an ordinary manager. Senior Jing must know something. Lone Moon paused and then reacted. That's right. There's still Sister Jing. He hurriedly opened his wristband and connected to Xin Jing's communication device. After a while, his body stiffened and the light in his eyes dimmed. He said with some disbelief, Shining, she even blocked Sister Jing's communication device. Both of their faces turned pale. Shining blocked the plane because she knew that they were no match for that person. Then she blocked Sister Jing's communication device because even Xin Jing couldn't handle that person. At this time in the chaos. A wise choice. The man looked at the place where Lone Moon and I Ching disappeared and raised his eyebrows at Shining. He returned to his slightly friendly and smiling expression. Given your status, it's most unsuitable for you to bring along these two burdens. Yet you keep bringing them along everywhere. Xin Ying's eyes narrowed and then swept a glance at the man. After a while she slowly took out a fruit and took a bite. She replied, Are you jealous? What? The man was stunned, as if he did not expect her to reply this way. Shining tilted her head and then continued. I've seen many single dogs like you. I understand. What do you understand? What's with this feeling of being looked down upon? The man's mouth twitched and he sighed deeply. Then he shook his head and said, There's no point in talking about these things. Interesting. Shining still nodded seriously. After all, a single stray dog like you is fundamentally different from people like us who travel in luxurious groups. I can understand if you feel unbalanced. Understand my foot. What was with this urge to strangle the other party? He did not find out that she was such a person in his previous investigations. The man pressed his forehead and finally regained his senses. Do you know who I am exactly? Shining paused in the act of chewing on the fruit. After a while she took another bite and said, I'm the person who blocked the monitoring of the Heavenly Tao organization and let Mu Xiang return to her original plane. I'm also the person who specially let this system invade Chef's plane. The man's eyes narrowed and he looked at her with some surprise. So you already knew. It seems that you do have some skills. It's not that I have good eyesight, it's that you're too obvious. Shining glanced at him and added, I'm not blind. Ahaha. The man was not angry. He continued to smile and asked, Then do you know why I did all this? Shining stared at the fruit in her hand and turned it to a side that was easier to eat. She slowly took a bite and then replied, You're so bored. The man's smile froze again. The corner of his mouth twitched. He could no longer pretend to be kind. His expression turned cold and he said seriously and sternly, That was my test for you. I wanted to see if you had the qualifications to take over my position. Shining looked disinterested, as if she had no interest in his words at all. She threw away the core of the fruit in her hand and looked up at the main system that was pretending to be dead and moving backwards, trying to escape. She lifted her chin and said, You want to stand up for it? The man paused and subconsciously looked at the main system. He shook his head and said, Don't misunderstand. I don't like this plane, Locust. Of course I won't help it. It's just that, oh that's good. Shining interrupted him and turned to continue walking towards the trembling main system. The man? Was she so impatient to deal with him? Chapter 695. The main system on the other side panicked and made a series of beeping sounds. Don't come over. The green code around the colorful original source started to flash crazily. It tried to stop Shining from coming closer, but it was completely useless. Shining walked over unimpeded. She reached out and grabbed the huge ball of mixed original source inside. You'd better think carefully. The man spoke again as if he couldn't help but remind her anxiously, This thing has the ability to enter any plane at will. Although it's rubbish, it has many eyes and ears. To me, or to you in the future, it will indeed be of some use. If you destroy it now, you won't have it in the future. Xining turned to look at him. Her expression darkened and she replied seriously, "Oh." As soon as she finished speaking, a huge wave of energy enveloped the ball of original source. Xining clenched her fists. With a puff sound, the entire ball of origin seemed to have been crushed, scattering in all directions. The surrounding code clattered and more than half of the surrounding code dimmed. Without the main system's restraint, the original source that had been forcibly mixed together separated and scattered, disappearing into the chaos. These were all original sources formed from the main soul. As long as the plane was not destroyed, one day it would be attracted back to its original plane by the original source of the plane. The man frowned as if he was angry that she had destroyed the main system without hesitation. He looked at her with displeasure and said, "You really destroyed it. Actually, as long as you subdue it, you can naturally use it in the future." "No need." Xining waved her hand. "You." The man was speechless. As if thinking of something, he sighed and said, "This thing was carefully chosen by me. It will definitely be of use to you. Do you have any idea who we are?" "Judge." Xining suddenly turned to look at him. The man was stunned. His eyes widened abruptly as he looked at her in shock. "You know?" "Yes, I guessed it." She nodded. To be able to make the two monitors not detect an organization like the Big Tao organization for so many years, only the judge is stronger than the monitors. It was a simple choice. The man glanced at her in surprise. "Then how did you know about the existence of the Nephilic judge?" Even the supervisor did not know about the existence of the Nephilic judge, yet she was able to say these 3 words accurately. "You know that." Xining had no intention of hiding anything. She said directly, "I once went into hibernation. At first I thought it was because I had used too much energy. But when I woke up, I realized that my power had exceeded a certain limit. Even I couldn't feel where the limit of my energy was. From then on, the word, trial, would often appear in my consciousness. If I'm not mistaken, I should be a judge like you." It's still too early to make a conclusion. The man's expression darkened. He looked straight at her and slowly smiled. Compared to the kindness he had shown before, there was a hint of coldness in his smile. "Do you know that judges can judge anyone in any plane or even the managers, including monitors? If managers are beings who control the heavenly Tao laws of the plane, then judges are the only ones who control the great Tao laws of the entire chaos." An indecipherable emotion flashed across his eyes. He continued, "There are countless planes in the chaos. Each plane has its own heavenly Tao laws. That's why there are countless managers. But there is only one great Tao law in the chaos. That's why there can only be one judge." Xining frowned. "You are the candidate to take over my position," he said solemnly, "but I don't know if you can be a good judge. So be it the Big Tao organization or this invading system, they are all tests I prepared for you. Only if you pass these tests and meet my requirements, can I rest assured in letting you take over my position. I don't want it." Before he could finish, Xining rejected him. The man paused. What the hell? Was he hearing things just now? She actually gave up so easily? "If you want to keep it, keep it." Xining waved her hand lazily. She continued to eat her fruit as she turned to leave. "If there's nothing else, I'll go back first. I'm still hungry." "Wait." The man finally reacted. In a flash, he stood in front of Xining. "You can't leave." What? Was she not allowed to resign even if she didn't want to be promoted? The man was stunned. His eyes darted around. After a while he said, "Your power has already grown to the level of a judge. But there can only be one judge in the world. So even if you pass my test, there must be a winner between us." "Oh." Xining nodded. She said crisply, "I admit defeat. That should do it, right? Go home, eat. All for all. Oh you." The man seemed to be angered. He stood in front of her and said, "That's not what I meant when I said winner? What do you mean then?" His expression darkened. With a heavy tone, he said, "Between us, only one can exist in this world." Xinying's hand froze. The man sighed heavily. He smiled kindly again. "It's just that our powers are about the same now. If we really fight, the entire plane in the chaos realm will be destroyed. That's why I set up those tests. I want to solve this problem in a more peaceful way. If you pass the test, I will naturally disappear." Xining tilted her head. "You mean, between the two of us, one has to disappear?" "That's right." He nodded. If both of us don't disappear, Shining asked seriously, will my food allowance be deducted? The man paused. He subconsciously replied, it can't be, right? Oh, that's all right. She heaved a sigh of relief. Wait a minute. What has this got to do with food allowance? Why are we suddenly talking about this? You don't understand what I mean. I'm saying that there can only be one judge. Who made that rule? Is it against the law to have two judges? Before he could finish, Shining interrupted him. You've been a judge for a long time and I've been awake for a long time. In other words, the two of us have existed at the same time. Why can't there be two? The man paused. He could not find any words to refute her. All right, I'm leaving. Shining turned to walk around him. Wait. He stood in front of her again. Unwilling to give up, he said, although I don't know what will happen if two judges exist at the same time, I'm sure it will have a very bad effect. That's why we have to, then we'll talk about it when it happens. Chapter 696. What did you say? The man frowned and looked at her in shock. He scolded her in disbelief. As a judge, how could you allow something like this to happen? What if it affects all the planes? You might not be able to bear the consequences. Although I'm not very satisfied with the results of your test, I didn't think that you wouldn't have any self-awareness as a judge. You don't deserve to be a judge. I actually thought you wanted me to voluntarily give up the power of a judge, to give it to you? Xinying's eyes narrowed. She suddenly continued, or should I say, you want me to die here for the sake of your so-called righteousness? The man paused. His eyes widened. What did you say? I said the reason why you appeared here in the first place. Shining smiled. She still looked nonchalant, but every word that came out of her mouth was shocking. When I said I was a judge, you did not refute my identity. You only emphasized that there can only be one judge, but you could not tell me why. Let me guess. She glanced at the man and continued, there are only two reasons why you can't tell me. First, you really don't know. Second, you can't tell me. If you don't know, then everything you said before must be true. However, for a person who had set up many obstacles for the next judge and personally tested them, it was impossible for him to come to a conclusion so easily without confirmation. But you kept stopping me from leaving, so it can only be the second reason. You can't tell me. His face turned green. Let me guess again. Why can't you tell me? Shining continued to deduce slowly, the reason why he can't say it, he must be trying to hide something. But we're both judges. All the planes in the Chaos Realm combined are no threat to us. Of course, except for each other. So this reason must be because of me. But before today we've never met each other. There's no enmity between us. You have no other reason to target me, other than our common identity. His expression darkened. So, let me make another bold guess. Xinying's expression turned serious. She said in a low voice, you said that there can only be one judge. Maybe it's true. But you can feel this, but I can't. I was suddenly dormant and then I realized I was a judge. In that case, did you suddenly realize that you were no longer a judge? It's more likely that your power has been fading away. Shut up. He suddenly raised his head and glared at her, a trace of panic flashing through his eyes. Shining did not stop. She said word by word, I'm afraid there was no test at all. You wanted to kill me from the start. That way he would be the only judge. He sneered as if he had removed all pretense, and his face was slowly tainted with a look of jealousy and hatred. I've underestimated you. When did you start suspecting me? Xinying's expression darkened. Since you attacked my people. He did hide it very well, but he could not hide his murderous intent towards Chef and Lone Moon. It was hard for her not to suspect him. The man was taken aback and a trace of surprise flashed in his eyes. So you knew from the beginning. He closed his eyes and when he opened them again, he didn't bother to conceal his killing intent. So now, what do you plan to do? Fight with me? At the cost of all the planes? No. Shining gave him a look like she was looking at an idiot. Why should I fight with you? Don't you want to be the only judge? He blurted out. If you don't fight with me now, aren't you afraid that I'll find a chance to kill you one day? Your power has been fading away. Why should I be afraid of you? She was not the one who would be at a disadvantage if this dragged on. He was no longer her match. You. The man was flustered, but he could not refute her. You keep forcing me to fight. Is it because you can only stop me from replacing you if I agree? Shining laughed softly and pointed out his thoughts. I'm sorry, I really don't want to cooperate with you. With that said, she turned and walked away. She was a little late today. She was so hungry. She wondered if Chef had finished cooking. Stop right there. The man panicked. He tried to pull her back but failed. Xinying's guess was right. His power was indeed fading away. In other words, if he did not defeat her this time, perhaps he would never have a chance to win. There were so many planes in the Chaos Realm. If she really did not want to see him, perhaps when his power completely disappeared, he would not be able to find her again. So this was his only chance to regain his identity as a judge. His expression turned cold. Seeing that he could not trick her, he thought of something and directly threatened her. I can tolerate existences like the Big Tao organization. If you leave, aren't you afraid that I'll attack other planes? I don't care. Xining did not even turn her head. Eating was more important. Don't forget there are still those 2 assistants of yours who have contracts. It's easy for you to leave, but they are both managers. Their planes cannot run away. Xinying's footsteps slowed. All right. Seeing that it was effective, the man was delighted. He continued to threaten, you seem to have an older sister who is a monitor in a high-level plane. Perhaps I can start with her first. Xining stopped in her tracks. She did not turn around. Instead, she tightened her grip on the fruit and crushed it. The juices exploded and stuck to her hand. Her voice turned cold. You say that again? Who is she going to attack? The man laughed even more sinisterly. I remember that her plane is not very far from here, right? I wonder how long a monitor like her can last in my hands? Whoosh! Before he finished speaking, several beams of red light flashed around them. Instantly, 4 translucent red light walls rose up, forming a huge box that trapped the 2 of them inside. The man looked at the translucent red light walls that suddenly appeared around him warily. The art of sealing? But he had never seen such an art of sealing. Only then did Xining slowly turn around. Her originally adorable face was filled with a bone-chilling coldness. It was as if one look at her would cause frostbite. There seemed to be some kind of frightening aura coming from her body. In an instant, it filled the entire wall of light. Her anger was mixed with murderous intent. It carried with it an aura that seemed to be able to destroy all living things. Even the man who was a judge could not help but feel a chill in his heart. He subconsciously took a step back. But all he heard was the other party's words. I dare you to touch a single hair on my sister's head. The man was shocked. A moment later he was filled with excitement. He laughed out loud. Ah, that's right. You have no other choice. Let's see who's better. Then let him take her power as a judge. Otherwise I'll kill your sister. Before he could finish speaking, he suddenly felt a pain in his chest. Xining, who was originally tens of steps away, suddenly appeared beside him. She punched him hard in the chest. He felt immense pain all over his body. That shocking power seemed to be crushing his entire body. Even the energy in his body was shaken, as if it was about to be scattered. His entire body was sent flying. Chapter 697. The man's heart jumped. He somersaulted in the air and stabilized himself. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and looked at the person opposite him. You do have some skills. He had been too careless. But the corner of his mouth lifted to reveal a scheming smile. As long as she made a move, she would definitely lose this battle. In the next moment, his figure swayed and he disappeared from his original spot. In an instant, a formless energy that did not lose to Xinying's pounced towards the man opposite him. It carried with it an aura that seemed to be able to destroy everything. Even the pitch-black chaotic space around them seemed to sense it and retreated far away. The man's voice rang out all around them. I'll let you see what a true judge is like. As soon as he finished speaking, the energy surrounded Xining and began to spin wildly. It was getting tighter and tighter. With every spin, the energy around Xinying's body decreased by a bit. He was absorbing her energy. Ah, your energy will also belong to me. I'm the only judge. The man's voice was getting more and more arrogant. The formless energy wrapped around Xinying's body tighter and tighter. There was not much energy left in Xinying's body. Even the light walls around them were starting to shake. It looked like they were about to collapse. The sharp blade-like force swallowed the energy and attacked Xining directly. With a swoosh, it slashed across the side of her face. A glaring red slid down the side of her face. Xining paused and subconsciously reached out to touch her face. She stared blankly at the unfamiliar red on her fingertips and narrowed her eyes. Her originally cold black eyes seemed to be dyed red. The man's attack was getting more and more ferocious. The surrounding energy was getting tighter and tighter. Shen Ying's energy had been completely absorbed. She was like a lamp that had run out of oil. Finally, the last defense around her body shattered. The violent energy rushed towards her. It looked like it was about to kill her. Suddenly, a glaring red light shone from her body again. It was like thousands of sharp blades. The moment the man's energy rushed towards her, she counterattacked. Thousands of rays of light shot out, as if they were going to pierce through the entire chaotic space. The man let out a blood-curdling scream, and the surrounding energy began to twist unstably, as if it was being attacked by something. What is this? Impossible, her energy had clearly been absorbed by him. How could there still be? And it could even hit him, who had already turned into pure energy. Before he could think clearly, Shining suddenly reached up and grabbed something. There was nothing in her hand. However, he felt as if his entire body was being squeezed by something. In the next moment there was a gust of wind and he felt dizzy. With a bang, he smashed into the wall of light beneath his feet. Ah! The man cried out in pain again. The ball of energy that he had transformed into trembled, as if it was about to be torn apart. This is impossible, how can you catch me? Shining picked up the ball of gas and smashed it around in a routine manner, producing a series of loud thuds. With each smash, some of the energy that the man had just absorbed would be shaken off. In less than a moment, all the energy that he had just absorbed would be smashed out. The man didn't even have time to react. It was only when he felt that he couldn't even protect his own energy that he thought of resisting. The ball of condensed energy dissipated instantly and retreated. He once again turned into his human form. Compared to the arrogant look he had just now, the man now looked especially wretched. He glared at Shining with a ferocious expression, but a hint of fear flashed across his eyes. I've underestimated you. I didn't think that you'd already grown to such a stage. Even he couldn't completely absorb her energy. He looked at her with fear, then looked at the walls of light around them. Something flashed in his eyes as he said, however, there's still time. One day all the energy in your body will belong to me. With that said, his figure flashed and he turned to rush upwards. He had miscalculated. He didn't dare to attack just like that. It was better for him to leave first. Can you escape? Shen Ying's expression darkened. The surrounding wall of light lit up and suddenly blocked in front of the man. The man laughed coldly. With a wave of his hand he released a beam of energy. Humph, you think you can stop me with this? Before he could finish speaking he heard a sizzling sound. The energy that he released was instantly swallowed up by the wall of light. How is this possible? His eyes widened in disbelief. Weren't these walls of light set up by Shining to prevent their energy from spreading to other planes? How could they possibly block his full-powered attack? Without time to think, Shining raised her hand. Above the wall of light, thousands of beams of red light suddenly shot out. They were densely packed and shot towards the man. Caught off guard, he was hit by one of the beams and it went straight through his body. He subconsciously wanted to transform into an invisible energy body, but he found that his whole body was sluggish. Something had sealed the energy in his body. He couldn't transform at all. He could only let the red light create bloody holes in his body. Not only that, the energy in his body was leaking out continuously from the wounds. His whole body was like a punctured balloon, leaking energy uncontrollably. This can't be. Why is this happening? My energy. No, don't. He finally panicked. His eyes widened in fear. He frantically tried to cover the wounds on his body, but he couldn't move at all. It was as if something had locked him in place. There was no way he could stop the energy from flowing out of his body. What kind of light is this? His face was pale. He stared at Shining as if thinking of something. The fear in his eyes deepened. This is not the power of a judge. A judge can't do this. Who are you? Who are you? Shining did not answer him. She only walked towards him step by step. Her face was cold and expressionless. Only her bright red eyes were especially frightening. It was as if they could destroy everything. The man wanted to resist, but he couldn't move at all. He could only watch as she walked closer and closer until she stood right next to him. Then she reached out and grabbed his neck, lifting him up. She was only grabbing his neck, but he felt as if his whole body was being squeezed by something. Moreover, the grip was getting tighter and tighter. At that moment, he felt as if his internal organs, consciousness, and divine soul were being squeezed by some unknown force. An indescribable pain engulfed him. The man's eyes widened. His face was full of fear. His whole body began to twist and distort. One moment he became an invisible energy body, and the next moment he changed back to his original body. No. Don't kill me. I was wrong. Please. I beg you. Shining did not let go. Instead she tightened her grip. Her eyes narrowed. Suddenly she leaned closer and said word by word, "It doesn't matter how you deal with me. But my sister won't do it even once." As soon as she finished speaking, she tightened her grip and crushed his spirit body. With a bang, the man's distorted body exploded and turned into countless energy particles that scattered everywhere. Chapter 698. Once the man died, a huge shockwave spread out in all directions. Even the chaos space shook. Fortunately, most of the energy was locked inside the wall of light. It did not reach the plane in the chaos space. Shining raised her hand and the wall of light shrank into a small red cube. A ball of white energy was locked inside. She looked at it and frowned. Then she stuffed it into her storage bag in disgust. Only then did the redness in his eyes fade away little by little. Big boss? The parenting system, which had been isolated outside the red wall and was not affected at all, called out weakly. Big boss was so scary. Scarier than ever before. Shining looked up at it. Did you swallow up the main system? Swallowed it up. The parenting system blinked its cartoon eyes. Big Boss had instructed it to do this from the start. After it obtained the physical body, Big Boss promoted it and instructed it to swallow up the other's program after the main system collapsed. That way it would become the new main system. Even if there were scattered subsystems in other planes, Big Boss would be able to control them completely. Reporting boss. I found a total of 1,568 subsystems scattered across different dimensions. Do you want to recall them now? Shining tilted her head, looking uninterested. She raised her hand and opened the plane passage. Let's go home and eat first. So hungry? Yes, Big Boss. No problem, Big Boss. Indeed, Big Boss was still the same Big Boss. As long as it had a leg to lean on, there was nothing to be afraid of. It wasn't afraid at all just now. 3. Chef, slow down. It hurts. Be more King gentle. How can I slow down at a time like this? I can't take it anymore. Bear with it. Can you bear with something like this? Why don't you go down and experience it for yourself? I know. Just give it to me. You said that half an hour ago. I'm dying. Shining, who had just returned, she rubbed her eyes and looked at the two people who were hugging each other not far away. Speaking of which, did she come back at the wrong time? Oh, what are you guys doing? What's with this sudden feeling of being cuckolded? Only then did the two of them turn around. Shining. Lone Moon exclaimed in shock. The person in front of her flashed and appeared in front of Shining in an instant. She felt her waist tighten and then she was hugged. The other party's embrace was a little tight, causing Xin Ying's already starving stomach to feel even more uncomfortable. However, the hands around her waist were slightly trembling as if to confirm something. His head was buried in the silky hair at the side of her neck. After a long time, he spoke in a hoarse and aggrieved voice, "Master." Shining was just about to pull his hand away when she stopped. Instead, she gently stroked his back and answered, "Are you okay?" Lone Moon quickly got up and walked over worriedly. He directly pulled Shining out of Chef's arms and scanned her from head to toe. He pulled her arm and pinched her face. "You're not missing an arm, not broken a leg. You're alive." He heaved a huge sigh of relief as if the tightened bowstring was finally released. He then glared at her and said, "Holy shit, which version of cheat are you? You're okay?" One had to know that the person just now was the scariest opponent they had met so far. Otherwise, Shining would not have sent them back so quickly. This proved that she did not have the confidence to win, but she came back unscathed. "You're not forcing yourself, are you?" Lone Moon thought of something and his expression changed. Chef also looked nervous. He also looked at her. "Master. I'm fine." Xin Ying's mouth twitched and she directly took a step back. "It's fine if you pinched my face, but why did you directly bite me? Do you want to see if I'm 24K innocent?" "Master, you said the same thing the last time." Chef frowned directly and became more worried. When a new plane was opened, she also forced herself to hold on for a long time. In the end, she had to enter a dormant period before she showed it. "That's right." Lone Moon obviously thought of this too. "Your credibility is in the negative now. Something really happens. No, we have to ask Sister Jing to come and take a look. Chef also nodded and suggested. It's too slow to ask her to come over. Let's go over directly. All right, let's go over now. With that said, he directly turned and drew a line. This time, there were no obstacles and instantly opened the plane gate to the other world. Chef nervously turned back to look at Xining again. Master should be very weak now. I'll carry her over. Be careful. Remember to lie flat. I'll lift her leg. With that said, Chef directly carried his waist. On the other side, Lone Moon had already lifted her leg. Before Xining could react, she was already carried into the door by the two like a sack. Thus, a certain person who finally had a day off and was sitting at home drinking coffee looked up. Suddenly, there were two people in disheveled clothes carrying what looked like his own sister on their shoulders. Xining, Xinjing, hello 110? Winky faced 10 minutes later. Xinjing reached out to take down the detector above Xinying's head. She glanced at the light screen at the side and then at the nervous Lone Moon and Chef with some confusion. She then said, other than the increase in fat index, the other data are all normal. She reached out to look at Xinying's stomach. Look, there was even fat. Lone Moon then heaved a sigh of relief. Chef at the side didn't understand. He suddenly stood up and asked even more worriedly, Senior Xin, may I ask if this paper house index is serious? How should it be treated? With that said, he even turned back to look at Xining with some accusation. Master, something really happened to you. She actually wanted to hide it from them. Lone Moon, Xining, Xinjing, Senior Xin. Seeing that she didn't answer for a long time, Chef became even more worried. It's okay, she won't die. The corner of Xinjing's mouth twitched. Then she replied, just eat less. Chef was stunned. Only then did he understand what she said. His expression softened a little. What exactly happened? Xinjing frowned and glanced at the three of them. What made you take the risk of me breaking your legs and hurriedly carry Littling here for a checkup? Lone Moon and Chef exchanged a look. Then they both turned to look to the side. For a moment, three pairs of eyes were fixed on a certain person. Xining, who was about to reach for the bag of chips beside her, stiffened. But why don't we talk after dinner? She was really hungry. No, she said resolutely. Her fat index was already high. How could she still eat? Are you guys demons? Then, can the two of you put on your clothes first before asking? Xining let out a long sigh. It's very difficult for me to speak clearly in front of two people who are only wearing underwear when I'm hungry. Chapter 699. Adjudicator? Xinjing was stunned for a moment and frowned. Elder Sister Jing, you've never heard of them before? Lone Moon asked, slightly surprised. Xinjing shook her head. I've never heard of any judge before. There are uncountable numbers of planes in the primal chaos. Even the existence of monitors I only know about me and Milu. She turned to look at Xining. Littling, your ability is special. It far surpasses that of a monitor. Could it be that you're a judge like the person who attacked you? Xining, who was hugging the bag of chips, looked up. As she ate, she said, at first I thought so too. But after fighting with him, I realized that I might not be one. What do you mean? The three of them paused. Because the other party was too weak. Xining pondered for a moment. Then she took out the parenting system from her pocket and poked it. Baby's home. Put down the recording. Yes, big boss. No problem, big boss. The parenting system blinked its cartoon eyes. The entire cube emitted several beams of white light. Instantly the scene in the room changed. In an instant, the recording of Xining and the judge's battle in the chaos world was projected. The figures of Xining and the man appeared in front of them. A moment later, she heard the voice of the other party in disbelief. He asked her who she was, his face filled with fear. After a short while, his body was crushed by Xining and scattered into pieces. From start to finish, the entire battle took less than 10 minutes. Compared to the crushing opponents that Xining had faced in the past, there was not much difference. The only difference was that she was serious this time. His consciousness has been destroyed. All that's left is this. Xining took out a translucent box and placed it on the table. There was a ball of white energy inside. This ball of energy should be his energy as a judge. Some of it was scattered into the chaos world and I can't collect it. But I can't analyze this ball of energy. It seems like it's rejecting me. It would be a waste to throw it away. That was why she kept it. Energy rejecting you? Xinjing frowned and turned to look at her. Energy doesn't have sentience. Since the judge's consciousness has been destroyed, why would it still reject you? Lone Moon and I Ching reacted as well. That's right. To put it simply, energy was like eating bread. Although there were all kinds of flavors, they were all meant to be eaten. There was only bread that someone didn't like. How could the bread not agree to let someone eat it? I don't know what's going on. Xining directly reached out and placed her hand on top of the box. Indeed, in a short while, the white energy body in the box suddenly made a few crackling sounds. Tiny sparks like lightning drilled out of it and hit her palm, as if it was resisting her approach. It's really rejecting you? Lone Moon received the box with some surprise. He looked at the ball of white energy carefully, then turned to show it to Chef beside him, but he could not see anything special about it. After a while, he suddenly thought of something and said in a low voice, "Could it be that the remnant soul of the Nephilic judge is still hidden in here?" After all, he was a Nephilic judge who was even more terrifying than a monitor. It was possible that he had a backup plan that they could not see through. As soon as he said that, everyone's expressions changed except for Xining. It's not impossible. Let me see. Xin Jing's expression darkened. She immediately pulled out a screen and scanned the data in the box. Compared to when she checked on Xining, the data this time was pathetically little. There was only the energy, but the value could not be displayed. Xin Jing looked at it carefully for a while. The more she looked, the darker her expression became. There's nothing wrong with the data. There's no remnant consciousness either. Logically, there shouldn't be any rejection. I have to do a deeper scan. This way I can't see. As she spoke, she subconsciously reached for the box. Just as she was about to touch it, the entire box lit up. Older sister. Xining was shocked. She reached out to pull her away, but it was too late. The white ball of energy that was originally trapped in the box suddenly rushed toward Xinjing at an extremely fast speed. In an instant, it entered her body. In the next moment, Xinjing's entire body emitted a dazzling white light. The entire room was bathed in a snow-white light. A huge wave of energy swept out from her body. Xining was forced to take a step back. Lone Moon and I Ching were sent flying. The sofa, coffee table, tables and chairs around them, even the ground turned into dust. Everything was about to disappear. It was very likely that the entire plane was going to be sucked in. Xining had no choice but to draw a line in the air. In an instant, she created a space outside the realm and transferred the few of them inside. She also grabbed Lone Moon and I Ching. Older sister. Xinying's expression darkened. She raised her hand, wanting to tear the white light apart and pull them inside. Lone Moon, who was beside her, pulled her back. Wait, Xining. The light is disappearing. Xining paused. Indeed, the white light came quickly and left even faster. In an instant, it retracted, along with the energy that had swept away previously. In an instant, it retracted and entered Xinjing's body. Even the white light on her body dimmed. The whole thing happened in less than 2 seconds. If not for the empty box floating in front of her, it would seem that the shocking energy had never appeared. Older sister? Xining looked at her carefully. Are you all right? Xinjing looked at her hands. A rare look of confusion flashed across her face. I think. Xining was just about to step forward when Lone Moon and I Ching's expressions changed. Their eyes widened as they looked at Xinjing in shock. Xining. The aura on older sister Jing's body? What? Xining faltered. Holy shit, can't you tell? Lone Moon was even more shocked. The energy on her body suddenly became so scary. Although it was scary in the past, it was not like now. It made them a little afraid to go near her. Energy? Xining tilted her head. What's wrong? Was there a difference? Master, Senior Shin's aura now. I Ching also spoke up. It's the same as the judge from before. Xinying's expression darkened. She looked closely and realized that the energy on her older sister's body had indeed changed. It was just that to her, it was not very obvious. But it did give off some of the feeling of the judge from before. Could it be, older sister, Xinjing nodded. She sorted out the large amount of information that suddenly surged into her mind. The energy that you sealed in the box just merged with me. Merged? Then what are you now? Lone Moon could not help but ask. Xinjing put down her hands and turned to look at the three of them. Then she said in a low voice. I'm the judge now. Xining, Lone Moon, I Ching, ha. Chapter 700. Elder Sister Jean, you really became a judge? Lone Moon looked at Xinjing in disbelief. Xinjing was emanating a terrifying aura. She was different from the fear they felt before. She was like an unreachable mountain. Just one look at her made them feel like they were going to get lost in the huge energy. If the information I received when I merged the energy is correct, I am indeed one. Xinjing clenched her fists and frowned. And, just now, I received information from all the planes in the chaos world. This feeling was very similar to when she became a manager. It was as if she could control the life and death of all living things with a single thought. Only that the living things in the past belonged to the entire plane. Now she belonged to all the planes. What happened to the rejection? He and Chef had touched that box before, but they did not merge. Why did Xinjing merge the moment she touched it? Could it be that the energy was picky? It only picked the strong ones. Oh, for all hashtag. Wait, that's not right. It should be Xining, shouldn't it? She was the most powerful cheat. Why is it that only you, elder sister Jean, can merge with this energy? Lone Moon asked subconsciously. Xinjing sorted out the large amount of information that suddenly appeared in her mind. Then she explained, it's not just me. As long as a manager can withstand this energy, anyone can merge with it. Then just now. He and Chef had touched it before. Xinjing glanced at him and changed the topic. To be exact, apart from Xining, everyone can merge with this energy. The only difference is whether they can withstand it or not. The three of them hesitated. What did she mean? Could it be that this energy was not because it liked Xinjing, but because it despised Xining? This energy is indeed rejecting Little Ing. Xinjing continued. As her assistants, your powers also originate from her. That's why you can't merge with this energy. What? Xining frowned. There is no consciousness in this energy. She felt it from the beginning. The previous judge's consciousness had completely dissipated. It was impossible for him to control this energy. But why was it rejecting her? It's not the previous judge's consciousness that is rejecting you. Xinjing turned to look at her and said in a low voice, it's the entire chaos world. Lone Moon, I Ching. Xining, what? Were there not enough people who despised him, including all the people? Oh, undersure, Little Ing, you should have felt it. Your ability is special. Xinjing sighed and looked at her with uncertainty. Even the current me can't tell where the limits of your abilities are. And in the entire primal chaos, there is no existence stronger than the Nephilic judge, except for you. Then. Lone Moon looked at Xinjing, then turned back to look at Xining. Xining, what exactly is she? She. Xinjing's brows furrowed as if she was thinking about her words. After a while she replied, it should be an accident. What the hell? From what I just learned, her ability, her appearance, and everything else was an accident. A hint of confusion flashed across Xinjing's eyes. As if recalling something, she sighed and said, she should not have appeared in this world. I was the one who forcefully awakened her. So her birth was an accident. She was originally a normal person, but she completed all my training and became my assistant. It was also an accident that she transmigrated to that plane and obtained extraordinary abilities. It was even more of an accident that she became a manager. Xinjing took a few steps forward and scanned Xining from head to toe. She continued, everything about her should not have existed, but it does. These small deviations are not a big deal. But the ones who directly or indirectly caused all these changes are me, the monitor, and you two managers. So her situation has exceeded all the rules and expectations. She's not even under the control of the judge. Lone Moon paused. It took him a long time to digest Xinjing's words. In other words, Xining was actually nobody. She was really just a cheat. Winky face, what's up with that judge from before? Xining asked as she pulled out the bag of chips that she hadn't finished from somewhere. She was munching on them. Lone Moon and I Ching paused for a moment. That's right. Even Xinjing, who had just become a judge, knew all this. Then why did that person think that Xining was the judge and come looking for death? Xinjing thought about it. After a while she guessed, he must be blind. The judge is the same as the manager. There is only one judge. Little Ying's appearance may have affected his abilities. He sensed danger. This was a warning from the Chaos Realm. But he mistakenly thought that the Chaos Realm had chosen a second judge to replace him. That was why he wanted to get rid of Little Ying first. How could he mistake something like that? He must be blind. Or perhaps his identity as a judge was also obtained through stealing. That's why he thought that as long as he defeated Little Ying, he could obtain her powers. Still, Lone Moon and I Ching thought of something at the same time. They exchanged a look and said in unison, the main system. That's right. They had been chasing after the invading subsystem. That was how they discovered the judge. What's more, he had been trying to stop Shining from destroying it. Now that they thought about it, whether it was the main system or the Heavenly Tao Society that he had hidden, the only similarity between the two was that they could seize power from other planes, wasn't it? The only difference was the scale. Also, when he was fighting Shining, he purposely provoked Shining to attack him. He even used Xinjing to threaten her. That was why Shining flew into a rage. He needed the other party's consent before he attacked. Wasn't this the same method that the subsystem used to steal the original owner's primary soul? Holy shit. Lone Moon cursed subconsciously. From the looks of it, it was really as Xinjing said. That was probably how the judge from before became a judge. Who knew how many planes he had destroyed? No wonder he had his eyes on Shining the cheat. If that's the case. Yiqing thought of something. He turned to Xinjing and said, "That power just now has merged with Senior Xin. Then will you be alright? You don't have to worry about that." Xinjing glanced at the two of them and said, "Becoming a judge is not just about having power. What's important is the recognition of the chaos. If the previous judge really stole other people's powers to become a judge, then he probably hasn't been fully recognized by the chaos. He probably hasn't been fully acknowledged by chaos yet, which is why his power has been flowing away." "Then you dash me?" She suddenly laughed, but there was not much excitement in her voice. Instead, she turned to look at Shining with a strange expression. The corner of her mouth twitched before she said, "That depends on little Ing." "Shining?" Lone Moon and Yiqing exchanged a look. What did this have to do with her? The judge's responsibility is to maintain the balance and stability of all the planes in the chaos. An accident like little Ying's is naturally the most unstable factor. Yet even the judge can't do anything about her. So the chaos chose the only person who can do anything about her. Xinjing pointed to herself and said word by word, "It chose me to be the judge." Lone Moon, Yiqing, this was the reason why Sister Jing became the judge? The kind that specifically countered Shining? Although it sounded like child's play, why did she feel like she was witty? Shining, son of AB*TC. Chapter 701. Shining had become a real boss, the kind that even the chaos space could not defeat. Lone Moon was used to being shocked by this. Actually little Ing is secondary? Xinjing glanced at a certain person who was munching on potato chips like a rat. She sorted out the information about the chaos space that had just appeared in her mind and sighed. But this judge. Xinjing felt that her new job as a judge was a little difficult. Is it very troublesome? Shining asked subconsciously. She was only dealing with matters between planes. Her job was probably similar to that of a monitor. Nonsense. Xinjing rolled her eyes at them. Although planes rarely come into contact with each other, it's impossible. Although there is very little contact between planes, we can't rule out the possibility of managers or monitors. She seemed to have thought of something and frowned. There are countless planes in the chaos space. I don't know how many more things are waiting for me. In the end, it was all troublesome. In this way, Shining was not a big deal. Actually, the chaos space had too many concerns. Little Ying's ability was indeed special, but Xinjing knew her character best. She would not do anything that would endanger all the planes. Can't Senior Xin sense the danger in the chaos space? Yiqing could not help but ask. Even managers could sense danger in the planes. The judge should be able to too. Xinjing glanced at him. When I can sense it, it won't be a danger anymore. It was true that she could sense the situation of all the planes in the chaos dimension by closing her eyes, but which bad person would first announce to the world that they were doing something bad before doing something bad? Only when the situation was serious enough would people find out. But by then it would probably be too late to turn back. Just like when she first became a manager, she was attacked and invaded. By the time Mi Lu, the monitor, sensed that other planes were invading, she had already more or less resolved it. Since she was now a judge, she had to change. Naturally, she did not want the same thing to happen again. But the chaos space was too big and there was only one judge. No matter how many eyes she had, she could not keep an eye on everything. There would always be something she missed. Sister, why don't you try this eye? Shining suddenly grabbed the parenting system and handed it over. Ding. System. System greets big sister. The parenting system blinked twice before obediently greeting Kiran. Xinjing took it and saw that the other party was just a program. She subconsciously opened a holographic screen and brought up the other party's data. Suddenly, a row of complicated data flashed across the screen. She only took one look before her eyes widened. This is a self-replicating main system. Wait. Her eyes darkened again. It has awakened its consciousness. Yes. Shining nodded. Although the main body is just a set of data, it is already a special living being. Living beings? What kind of creature? Lone Moon did not understand and could not help but interrupt. Suddenly, he thought of something and his eyes widened. Holy shit. The last time you upgraded it, it didn't directly turn into a spirit, did it? Suddenly possessing a soul or something like that. One must know that the ultimate goal of the invasion of 001, as well as the swarm of beehive-like systems, was to have an independent consciousness, in other words, a soul. According to Xinjing, the parenting system already existed. You made it sentient? Not me. Shining stuffed the last potato chip into her mouth and turned to dig out Chef's storage bag out of habit. She explained, "It's you and Chef." Me. Chef, who was helping to dig out pastries, paused. Yes. She nodded and continued, "The two of you are the managers. You acknowledged the existence of the system from the beginning. It was only a matter of time before it developed its own consciousness and had its own soul." Lone Moon and I Ching were stunned. They exchanged a look and then turned around. Indeed, from the beginning, they had never seen the parenting system as a set of programs, even if it had always been possessing Feng Ying's body. But with Xin Ying's real-time little broadcast, they had long known of its existence. Especially after they got that cube, it became even harder for them to link the parenting system to Feng Ying. In addition, it constantly fawned over Xin Ying. Such human-like behavior made them not see it as a string of data, but as an independent entity, or rather, a human. Lone Moon and Chef were both managers. They represented two complete planes. If even they acknowledged the parenting system, then it was indeed normal for it to develop its own consciousness. Suddenly, they wanted to light a candle for the nest of invading systems that had already been completely destroyed. Thousands of other systems had tried their best to invade planes but still failed. The parenting system actually did it so easily. All their efforts were not as good as a piece of flattery. So, flattery was useless in the end? Oh, understand, older sister, can this be used? Xin Ying ignored the confused two and asked again. Xinjing then kept the screen and nodded. Not bad. With this system, it indeed saves a lot of trouble. There were thousands of subsystems connected to this thing, and it could also replicate itself. This was equivalent to having countless eyes, making it easier for her to manage the planes in the chaos. It's just that, its program still needs to be adjusted. There was a problem with the way the subsystems under this system entered each plane. It was considered a direct invasion and would inevitably affect the plane. But she was a judge. It was not a problem to give it the right to enter freely. As if it had seen through their plan, the parenting system eagerly flew 2 circles around Xinjing. As it flew, it chirped excitedly. System will serve Big Sister wholeheartedly in the future. Big Sister will rule the chaos for thousands of generations. Lone Moon, I Ching, this wasn't a data demon. This was a bootlicker. Alright, come here. Xinjing reached out and the parenting system landed obediently in her palm. It was a little complicated to modify so many subsystems at once. She had to go back and do it slowly. But, she turned to look at Xining. As if recalling something, she frowned. When I became a monitor, I wanted you to replace me as the new manager. Xining paused and subconsciously took a step back. But she heard Xinjing continue, but based on your current situation, it looks like you can't do it. Given how much the chaos was afraid of Xin Ying's abilities, it probably would not acknowledge her. Phew, that's good. Managing planes was so troublesome. She finally managed to push out too. I've become a judge. I don't think I can stay in my own plane forever. Naturally, I can't continue to be the manager of this plane. Before the plane's consciousness chooses a new manager, someone has to take care of it first. Xining and Chef exchanged a look. Then, very tacitly, they both took a step back and looked at someone beside them. Holy shit. Why are you looking at me? Loneman's mouth twitched. He glared back at them. The two of you are so deceitful. Not only did you dump 2 planes, you want to dump a third one? Scram. Chapter 702. In the end, Lone Moon did not take over that plane. After all, Xinjing still had an assistant there. Although Xinjing despised Kai Tian, he had worked there for so many years. Apart from Xining, he was the person who was most familiar with that plane. Before a new manager appeared, it was still possible to manage the plane temporarily. At most, the workload would increase by 3 times. Shenjing accepted the position of judge very quickly. She did not hesitate and accepted it. Lone Moon felt that it was partly because of Shening, and partly because of her previous experience. Shening had mentioned a few times that when she was young, she was often attacked by invaders. They had all experienced Shenjing's strength. Those invaders could not defeat Shenjing, so they could only attack Shening. And to be able to attack under Shenjing's nose, that kind of invader was probably at least at the level of a manager. Back then, in order to protect Shening, she had to guard the plane. The hardships were unimaginable. Therefore, she had always detested the vicious battles between planes. Shenjing was different from the previous judge. The previous judge's existence was not even known to the monitors. They only operated behind the scenes. Shenjing, however, immediately contacted and broadcast to all the monitors, announcing her existence. The main idea was simple: don't mess around or I'll mess with you. Although this might be a little dangerous, there would always be people who thought highly of themselves and wanted to provoke her. But given Shenjing's abilities, no one could defeat her. And her only weakness, Shening, was even more difficult to provoke than her. That was why there was no need to hide at all. As for the parenting system, it had already been officially renamed Chaos Surveillance System. Its main purpose was to help Shenjing travel between different planes and collect information from different planes. That way Shenjing could discover and solve problems faster. In the past, the system had been an illegal invasion, but now it was open and above board. With the authorization of the adjudicator judge, the system had even collected countless passes from the various planes. Furthermore, the system didn't need to possess any host at all. Of course, Chef and Lonman's plane were the first to issue the passes. As for Fengying, the parenting system carefully copied a subsystem and told them to bring it back. In any case, the system had been taking care of him for many years. Now that he was going to be separated, it had to find someone to take his place. Shening and the other two did not stay there for long. After watching Kai Tian for a while, they quickly returned to their own plane's divine realm while Shenjing was busy modifying the system's data. If he didn't leave now, he probably wouldn't be able to. Lone Moon strongly condemned the master and disciples' initial reaction of wanting to sell out their father. He even claimed that he would deduct 3 months' worth of food expenses and let them reflect on their actions. So hungry. Shening rubbed her ears that were getting calluses from Father Nyo's nagging. She then patted her flat belly. Why don't we eat first before reflecting on ourselves? Yes, master, eat your sister. Without waiting for Chef to finish, Lone Moon roared. He was still in a state of anger and directly rejected the feeding request. Is this King reflection? He turned around and glared at the two of them. Eat, 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 eat until you die. Let's go back to Invincible Sect first. She had just eaten 3 bags of potato chips, 5 plates of pastries and 6 fruits. Are you a freaking bottomless pit? But, no buts. Lone Moon turned and conjured a seal to open the door. Just as he was about to enter, Chef suddenly reached out and stopped him. Father Nyo. What? Lone Moon was still angry. He directly glared at him. Still trying to trick him? As Chef dug out the food for Shening, he replied calmly, Assistant Seal. Lone Moon was stunned for a moment. Then, as if recalling something, he turned back to look at the 2 plane trees at the side. He didn't know if it was an illusion, but he kept feeling that the originally short purple tree seemed to have lost its nutrients. For no reason it felt a little listless. The plane trees won't last much longer. Chef reminded again. Shit. Only then did he seem to recall something. He replied, got it. With that said, he turned and glared at Shening. It's all your fault? Shening. Meow meow meow. Oh. Lone Moon, however, walked straight back. Suddenly he reached out and grabbed Chef's collar, pulling hard. With a tearing sound, the clothes in front of Chef's chest were instantly torn apart, revealing a large area of his wheat-colored chest. Chef was caught off guard. His body swayed from the pull. Why are you moving around? Lone Moon said in an unfriendly tone. Chef immediately stood still. Not only did he not resist, he even moved forward a little. Shening, what the hell? Was he planting grasslands in front of her? Then should she not stop him? Or should she not stop him? On the other side, Lone Moon had already reached out to touch Chef's chest. His palm pressed on the position of his heart. He pressed hard and retracted it after a while. A white light flashed. A trace of black mark floated out from Chef's chest. It gathered in Lone Moon's palm and formed a small semicircle. It looked a little familiar, especially that familiar aura. That mark only stayed in Loneman's palm for a while. Then it directly burrowed into his body. Instead, Chef at the side seemed to be hit by something. His expression was a little ugly. His body swayed and he took a few steps back. Shining frowned. She reached out to help him. What is this? What else can it be? The assistant seal that you gave us back then. Lone Moon set up a recovery array beside Chef. Assistant seal? Shining hesitated. Yours? Why was half of Lone Moon's assistant seal in Chef's body? It's all because you lied to me. Lone Moon rolled his eyes at her. As he activated the array he said, you pushed Chef and me back without saying a word. Then you sealed the plane. We were worried that something would happen to you. There was no other way. That's why we thought of transferring 2 sets of assistant seals to one person. It's better than helping you. Who knew that she would come back when they were only halfway through the transfer? A cheat was indeed a cheat. So when they just came back they were not planting grasslands. They were transferring the assistant seal. We are managers. Our power is connected to the plane. Lone Moon pointed at the plane tree beside him that had become energetic again. The assistant seal cannot be transferred for too long. Otherwise it will affect the plane. That was why he hurriedly took it back. He turned to look at Chef's expression. Seeing that he had adjusted his breathing, he then retracted the array on the ground. He turned to open the transportation tunnel. Alright, stop wasting time. Let's go back. Xin Ying's expression fell. Were they really not going to eat? Chef continued digging into his storage bag. He lowered his voice and said, Master, I just transferred a lot of ingredients from Senior Shin's fridge. We can cook once we get back. Xin Ying's eyes lit up. She patted Yi Qing's shoulder hard. Good chef. The two then followed into the transportation tunnel. Lone Moon turned back to glance at the sly master and disciple. He wanted to say something. After a while he did not say anything. Forget it. If preaching was useful he would not be father. He was already used to it. Thinking about it, ever since he met Shining he was a proper businessman. He actually went in the direction of lying to the gods. More importantly, he was still that father. With a woman like this, what could he do? He was also very desperate. But now that Xinjing was a judge, at least there would not be any blind supervisors or managers who would come and invade their plane. They could finally have peace for a while. Coupled with Xin Ying's accident, they had nothing to fear. Come to think of it, the 3 of them had not returned to Invincible Sect for a long time. They thought that it would not take long to deal with an invader. They did not expect so many things to happen. In addition, after entering the chaos, time flowed differently. They did not know how much time had passed. Fortunately, everything was settled. It was time to go back. Tiani must have arrived at Invincible Sect now. Invincible Sect's production of pills could double again. Enz was shumming that silly boy, he did not know if he had ascended. He still felt like he had forgotten something. Forget it. Not important. The unimportant little Biao. What happened to bringing back his scales? Didn't they say they would bring back his scales? For all under the end of the book. Chapter 703. Ever since Xinjing sent out that notice to the entire plane, whether it was an illusion or not, the invasions of Chef or Loneman's plane were obviously much less. Seeing that the few of them had nothing to do, they did not stay long in Invincible Sect and returned to the Divine Realm. Lone Moon had long handed over the matters of the sect to Yu Hong and the rest. Although they refused to take over the position of sect master, in actual fact, the things they did were already no different from a sect master. It was just that the thinking of the brainless fans made them feel that only Shining could be called a sect master. Lone Moon had originally planned to drag these 2 troublesome fellows to his own plane to help. There were no more invasions, but his plane was still a new plane. Even the Heavenly Tao had just been born not long ago. There were always some imperfections in the rules, and there were always unexpected situations waiting for him to deal with. Although Hong Meng, Fatty, and Rabbit Mushroom were quite capable, there were still some things that the manager had to do personally. Lone Moon originally thought that Chef was also a manager, and could at least help a little. If he really couldn't do it, he could just copy the rules on the other side to make up the numbers. As for Shining, forget it. But when he really started, he realized that although the 2 planes looked similar, there were still many differences. For example, like the sorcery system, some sorcery that could be used on the other side might not be suitable here. There would always be some differences in effect, function, or casting method. He suddenly remembered that Xinjing said that every plane was unique. It seemed that they were indeed different. The set that he originally wanted to copy and paste couldn't be used at all. He could only slowly modify it and he could only do it himself. So when he finally had some free time he began to busy himself again. On the other hand, Chef and a certain foodie had completely entered the mode of eating and sleeping, sleeping and eating like pigs. That's right, Lone Moon was the old man being eaten. Even Chef was holed up in the kitchen all day long, either cooking or on his way to cook. The entire divine realm was filled with the fragrance of his cooking. That smell was simply amazing. Even Fatty, who occasionally came to report work, couldn't help but ask for an extra bowl of white rice. He silently squatted at the side and ate. This squatting, even Hong Meng, an ancient god who had been abstaining from food for God knows how long, shamelessly asked for a bowl and squatted beside Fatty. Then even Rabbit and Mushroom followed suit and asked for white rice. They squatted in an especially neat row. In the beginning he would only come once in a while, but later on he would report every day. The scene suddenly became strange. In front of Shining and the other two was a table full of fragrant delicacies, while 4 people stood beside them, holding bowls of rice, drooling and eyes glowing. Perhaps Shining was a little flustered by their hungry wolf-like gazes. Subconsciously she said, "Together?" "Sure." 4 seconds. Thus, they naturally went to the table and were given 1 or 2 vegetarian dishes. At first, Lone Moon didn't think much of it. Later on he realized that something was wrong. Chefs had always been like feeding pigs when they cooked. Shining, this foodie, was a bottomless pit. Therefore they had to eat for at least 2 hours for each meal. 3 meals a day would take up to 6 hours. With the increase in the number of people, the time for meals would naturally increase accordingly. 2 hours a day meant that they had to spend 8 hours a day eating. As a good businessman he had always approved of the 8-hour working day. In this way he was the only one who worked hard every day. As for the other 4 people, they only cared about eating their meals. Lone Moon felt that his entire being was not good if this went on. Thus, he forcefully cancelled their meals and dragged the 4 out of the divine realm. He even restricted their access and allowed them to come and freeload. He turned and glared at the 2 innocent wastrels. It was fine if they didn't help, but they were even holding him back. Did they forget who was paying them for their meals? Yet the 2 nibbling on the Elder's clan didn't seem to notice. Especially Chef. With a few fewer people to feed, he spent the extra time researching new dishes. He completely forgot his identity as a sword cultivator. From time to time he would bring new dishes for Lone Moon to try. "Father Nyo, I've seen this kind of pastry in Elder Shin's plane. But Master doesn't like sweet things, so I changed it to spicy. Do you want to try it?" Lone Moon glanced at the plate in his hand. The corner of his mouth twitched. Suddenly he wanted to stab him with his sword. "Get lost. Do you think I can't tell? Whose cake has a spicy flavor?" "Eh? This flavor doesn't work?" He had only seen it once. "You're good. Try it yourself." "Oh." Only then did I Ching put away the cake in his hand with a look of disappointment. With a turn of his hand, a flame ignited and instantly burned the cake clean. Lone Moon, damn it. He didn't even dare to try it himself. That's why he gave it to him. That's definitely it. Fu*K, Chef had already turned around and started to work on the various ingredients on the baking table again. His expression was relaxed and happy. He was just short of humming a little tune. Moreover, compared to before, his expression lacked the natural sense of vigilance. Perhaps it was because there weren't any invasions during this period and the plane was stable. He was really too relaxed. He didn't have any sense of danger at all. Lone Moon looked down at himself, who was exhausted. Then he turned to look at a certain person who was slumped on the chair like mud. He couldn't help but want to find trouble. "Chef, it's not appropriate for you to be so relaxed, right?" Chef had just picked up the pot when he paused. He said in confusion, "But there are no invaders now. There's Shorty watching over the plane. There's nothing to be nervous about. What's more, Elder Shin is a judge. There probably won't be any problems in the future. There shouldn't be anyone stupid enough to take the initiative to bump into them, right?" "Oh." Lone Moon picked up a pastry from the stove and stuffed it into his mouth. "What about you and Shining? Don't you have any plans?" "Master." He turned back to look at Shining, who was sitting on the chair outside. His gaze softened. He turned into a dog food machine, throwing out dog food. "As long as Master is by my side, I have nothing else to ask for." Lone Moon suddenly felt that the pastry in his hand was a little stuffed. He subconsciously covered his eyes. Damn it, he wanted to burn them to death. He scanned Chef from head to toe and couldn't help but remind him, "I'm asking you, when do you plan to settle down with Shining? Based on your current situation, are you sure you can get past Sister Jing?" His face turned snow white. The hand holding the pot trembled and it fell with a clang. Even the true phoenix fire below went out with a bang. Holy shit. Don't tell me you just remembered this now? You couldn't even beat Xinjing when she was a monitor. Are you sure you can beat her now? Why are you looking at me? I can't help it. You know how Xinjing is a siscon. She'll definitely beat you to death. Don't be like this. It's useless no matter how many circles you draw on the ground. Shut up. Wait, why are you holding the sword? Holy shit, let go of me. I don't want to be a training partner for a pervert like you. Damn it, he shouldn't have exposed him. Chapter 704. Compared to Lonman's new plane, Invincible Sect really had nothing to worry about. Yu Hong and the others who had joined the sect the earliest had all become exalted immortals. Especially Siyu. Although she was shy, she had the highest level of enlightenment among all the disciples. Naturally, her cultivation was also the strongest. She had successfully ascended to become a young emperor, and was even close to becoming an immortal emperor. In addition, she was a body cultivator. Even if she were to compete with the celestial emperors of the various continents, she would be able to fight them. As for Tianyi, who had just ascended not long ago, he did not know if it was luck that the continent he ascended to was in the Bo Sea. With the disciple token that Lone Moon gave him, he actually found his way to the invincible heavenly palace. Since he only focused on alchemy, Yu Hong assigned him to Boss Lan and the Drifter. She asked him to learn alchemy from the two of them. After all, he had just ascended, and his alchemy skills in the lower domain were no longer useful. He had to learn all over again. Fortunately, Invincible Sect lacked everything except immortal herbs. In addition, he was indeed a natural alchemy cultivator, so he improved rapidly. Boss Lan was very pleased. After teaching him twice, he directly threw some low-level elixir recipes and orders to him to practice. Tianyi was a little nervous about this at first. After all, no matter how low-level elixirs were, the ingredients were all immortal herbs. Moreover, he was an earth immortal who had just ascended. He could not be too wasteful. Until he was refining a furnace of first-level elixirs and the furnace exploded more than 10 times. He thought he would be punished, but Master Lan turned and threw him a key to the immortal herb storeroom. Here. Go and get the immortal herbs yourself. I can't be bothered to give them to you every time. Then, with a nonchalant expression, he turned and followed the immortal called Radish out with the pot to water the plants. Tianyi felt extremely guilty. After thinking about it, he still told Master Drifter about this. He felt uneasy about wasting so many immortal herbs. Moreover, when he came looking for them, he had asked around. Invincible Sect was the heavenly palace of the celestial emperor of the entire Bo Sea continent. After the celestial emperor of the Bo Sea took office, he had never recruited disciples from outside. Moreover, he joined Invincible Sect because of the jade token that Lone Moon gave him. Although he did not know why Brother Lone Moon had it, he could not implicate him. Upon hearing this, the Drifter took out a dandelion-like fairy plant and stuffed it into his hands mysteriously, saying, "Why don't you try adding this to the ingredients? It can increase the success rate of making pills, and I'm sure the furnace won't explode." She added, "Just don't let Radish see it." Tianyi, no, he was here to ask for forgiveness, not to increase the success rate of pill formation. Moreover, the stalk of immortal herb in his hand was a peak-grade immortal herb. It looked even more precious than the ones in the back mountain. Why did he casually take it out for him to refine a Tier 1 immortal pill? How can you be so wasteful? Tianyi had no choice but to report this matter to the managing elder, Elder Immortal Yu Hong. She was the eldest senior sister of the sect and was in charge of the entire sect. It would not be wrong to report to her first. Indeed, Elder Yu Hong frowned after hearing this. She subconsciously tapped her fingers on the table a few times. After thinking for a while, she glanced at Tianyi again. After a while, she took out another key and handed it to him. She said, "There are indeed too few low-level immortal herbs in the sect's storage. Why don't you use the 4th or 5th level ones first? If you really can't do it, the 6th or 7th level ones will do too." With that said, she stuffed the key into his hands. Tianyi, huh? No, he was not complaining about the immortal herbs. He was not here to ask for immortal herbs. Did you guys get the point wrong? Junior brother Tianyi, all the best. Before he could finish, Yu Hong patted his shoulder and said earnestly, "Learn to refine pills well. If there's anything you don't understand, just ask Boss Lan. He has plenty of time." "No, Elder, listen to my explanation. Don't worry. Although our sect is poor, I will ask the disciples to look for the low-level immortal herbs you need from Celestial Emperor Biao. We will definitely have enough. No, I'm really not here to ask for immortal herbs. Let's do it. The sect's storage of immortal stones is already not enough. 200%. Why don't we expand our sales to the demonic realm? Stop it. What happened to the saying that immortals and demons could not coexist? Wait a minute. Why did he feel that the way Elder Yu Hong earned money looked so familiar? Yet he could not remember. But from then on, Tianyi finally understood. To the immortals of the various continents, the immortal herbs that were treasures were nothing in their invincible sect. As a money-burning pill cultivator, he was already used to lacking ingredients for a long time. The feeling of getting rich overnight was too shocking. He felt that he needed a long time to get used to it. But before Tianyi could get used to it, in less than a month, Invincible Sect welcomed a newcomer. Wuxia finally ascended. Time flowed differently in the immortal realm and the lower realm. Although only a month had passed in the upper realm, thousands of years had passed in the lower realm. And Wuxia did not ascend alone. When he ascended, he brought along the publicly acknowledged good demon who had stayed in Guiyi sect for thousands of years and refused to leave, Little Mo-san. Ever since Xin Ying and the others left, Little Mo-san did not dare to get up. At first, the people of Guiyi sect were a little afraid. After all, he was a demon and a sky fiend at that. But after a while they realized that he seemed to grow there. He did not move at all. Guiyi sect slowly let down their guard. But he carried demonic qi. Although he did not attack, it still affected the surrounding environment. At first, only the flowers and plants within a few feet of him withered. Slowly, it affected all the spirit herbs on the entire floating peak. Not a single blade of grass grew within a few miles. The Guiyi sect master was about to cry. They were a pill cultivator sect. So what if they could not grow spirit herbs? But no matter how others tried to persuade him, he refused to get up. The look in his eyes said, "Don't you think you can lie to a smart demon like me?" And he knelt for more than 100 years. The spirit herbs in the sect were almost all dying. Wuxia, who was already a nascent soul, could not help but trick him. "I say, little San, you can't keep kneeling here. A compassionate person like Miss Shun would definitely want to see you help more people and do more good deeds. Who knows, she might be happy and forgive you." Really? Little Mo-san hesitated. He was a little tempted. Wuxia continued to trick him a few more times. Only then did he get up doubtfully. From then on he really followed Wuxia and did good deeds to uphold justice. Perhaps because of his identity as a demon, he played a very good role in leading the way. Once he did good deeds, even those evil fiendish cultivators in the past began to slowly turn over a new leaf. After all, the demon race was the ultimate goal of all fiendish cultivators. They needed to do good deeds. That proved that their previous cultivation methods were wrong. Therefore, under Little Mo-san's leadership, the cultivators of the orthodox and fiendish sects who were originally like fire and water actually began to communicate and work together. The two sects were unexpectedly harmonious. Until Zhuiyuan ascended, there were no major conflicts. To prevent Little Mo-san from being tricked by him and kneeling back to Guiyi sect to harm those spirit herbs, Wuxia also brought him up to the upper realm when he ascended. Little Mo-san also brought Wuxia to Invincible sect. He said that he was going to ask for forgiveness from the gods. In the thousands of years of cultivation in the lower realm, Wuxia did not go astray. He was still an upright sword cultivator. The moment Yu Hong saw him, she knew that he was taught by Elder Lone Moon. She directly led him into the sect and even threw him to her juniors to train. And he was an earth immortal. Coincidentally, the disciples were lacking sparring partners. As he trained, his cultivation increased. Sword cultivators should be very durable, right? Wuxia, wait, senior sister. I don't have an immortal sword yet. Can you give me a sword before we start fighting? Cut the crap. Fight. Senior brother, I'm just an earth immortal. Even a sword cultivator can't take a full blow from a mystic immortal. Put down your sandbag-sized fist. It's okay, junior brother. You won't die. Eh? Senior sister, what are you doing? I can't beat you even if you don't transform. I'm respecting my opponent. Wait, don't help. Wuxia started to seriously doubt his life. Especially when he saw Tianyi, who was perfectly fine. All he had to do was squat in the alchemy room with a 5th-level immortal herb in his left hand and an 8th-level immortal lotus in his right. He even had the urge to escape to the lower realm. Speaking of which, was it too late to change to a pill cultivator now? The correct chapter of Master Disconnected Again will continue to be updated on Green Bean Novel website. There will be no advertisements on the website. Please bookmark and recommend it to Green Bean Novel website. You're tuning in to the Han Lee's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.